Good evening. This will be a call to order of the City of Boynton Beach Budget Workshop today, July 13th at 5 p.m. John, would you please provide a brief introduction?
Hello and welcome. I'll be providing assistance to the board and chair during today's meeting. Before we start, I'd like to review a few items, and I believe I have the wrong script. Just a second. My apologies. All right. There will be your microphones have been muted to reduce background noise during this public meeting. There will be specific times during this meeting when members of the public can ask questions. The first way is by typing their questions into the questions section at the bottom of the GoToWebinar interface. Those items will be read into the record by a meeting organizer at the appropriate time. Please be sure to include your name for the record. The second way is by using the GoToWebinar interface and clicking on the raise hand option. The meeting organizer will announce the speaker and unmute their audio, at which time the speaker should state their name for the record. Before speaking, please take steps to minimize any sources of background noise and speak clearly into your device during the allotted time. I will now turn control over to Mayor Grant, who will be presiding over today's meeting.
Thank you, John. First off, would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Stephen B. Grant.
Present.
Vice Mayor Tyson Serga.
Here.
Commissioner Justin Katz.
Here.
Commissioner Woodrow Hay.
Here.
Commissioner Christina Romulus.
Present.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you. All right. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Yes, I'll second.
Everyone's comfortable with the aspect of two public comments, one after our budget overview and one right before we close. All right, all those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Lori, would you like to begin with the budget overview?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Commissioners and the public. It is our pleasure as staff to present to you tonight the fiscal year 2021 proposed annual operating and capital improvements budget. I'm just going to mention a couple key highlights of it and then turn it over to our finance director. But first, I must say thank you to Mara Fredrickson, our Director of Financial Services, as well as our budget manager, Tony Davidson. Without the two of them, we wouldn't be here getting this done. You know, Tony, this is his year-round work and does an outstanding job on it. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you. And he used some new software this year, which really helped organize the budget document and allow us to submit for some awards, and we're really quite excited about that. I'm pleased to say quickly that we were able to provide you a balanced budget this year without any use, fortunately, of even our undesignated fund balance, which that's exciting for us. We are recommending our millage rate stay the same, as well as the fire assessment rate. So just out of the gate, those are just the key things. And I'm going to now to Mara to go ahead and take you through a brief PowerPoint, which is an overview of the budget, Mayor. And then we have presentations, very brief presentations, prepared by the three largest departments that are probably having the most impact on the budget when it comes to any change. And that is police, fire, and our public works. So outside of that, we have planned on allowing you just to maybe talk through if you have questions on all of our other departments and funds, but we just have presentations on those three large departments tonight. Prepared to talk about every bit of it, depending on how you'd like to do that. So Mara, I'll turn that over to you now. John, can you unmute Mara, please? It's
Okay.
under Tony Davison.
Just a second.
You're muted.
There we go.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Mara Frederickson. I'm the Director of Financial Services. Tonight, you have in front of you a copy of the PowerPoint, which is the overview of our budget. You have two resolutions that'll be approved as part of the goal of these presentations at the end of this, your proposed millage and your preliminary fire assessment. We have a PowerPoint presentation on your screen. Some of you have seen these before. The fire assessment and the millage are both time sensitive in order to be considered for your tax roll, which is why we're gonna approve those preliminary resolutions at the end of these workshops. How can I move through it?
Mara, you should have keyboard control. Yes, I believe you do. So if you do have any issues, let me know and I'll take that control back and advance the slides.
Hold on, let's see.
You should
It's
be
not
able to,
letting me go through the slides, so.
it's not working?
No,
Okay.
Is he controlling? Yeah, he will. You'll just have to say next slide.
yeah.
Are you able to grant control back to me?
Did, but it didn't.
It still says John. You on John's screen?
Do you see the option to advance the PowerPoint?
No,
Okay. My apologies.
sorry about that, John.
That's okay.
Yeah, but it's not showing.
All right, just a second. All right, I will just please prompt me to advance to the next slide as you need to.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the purpose of tonight's budget workshop, or the next few days of budget workshops, I should say, are to review your 2021 proposed operating and capital budgets with the commission, provide an opportunity for comments from the public, and we're approving the two resolutions, your millage rate and your preliminary rate resolution for fire. Next slide, please. Our budget schedule through September. Our budget workshops are scheduled the next few days, July 13th through the 15th, to discuss and adopt your proposed millage and fire assessment rate. Currently, we're proposing Thursday, September 10th as the first public budget hearing. After some discussion today, we may want to consider that to move to Tuesday, September 8th as an option, which is also a CRA meeting. So we'll talk about that at the end of the workshops as well. And then Tuesday, September 22nd as the second public budget hearing. Next slide, sorry. This slide shows all of your funding sources, being our total budget as $226.1 million. Your major contributors to that are water and sewer, which is 52.2 million or 23.1%. Property taxes at 41.1 million or 18.2%. Your capital sources are 30.2 million or 13.4%. And fund transfers are 18.5 million or 8.2% of that total 226.1 million. Next slide, John. Your proposed expenditures also 226.1 million. General fund makes up 99.2 million of that, or 43.9%. Your utility fund makes up 52.2 million or 23.1%. Your capital, general, and utilities are total 30.2 million or 13.4%. Next slide, John. Our general fund proposed budget this year, we're proposing 99.2 million. As you'll see, personnel services include 53.5 million of that, or 53.9%. Your pension contributions is 18.77 million, or 18.9%. And then your operating expenses are 22.57 million. So the majority of your general fund proposed budget is that 99.2 million. Next slide, please. A breakdown of your general fund department budgets are that 99.2 million. Police makes up 35.57 million, or 35.9% of that. Fire is 25.6 million, or 25.8% of that. Public Works is 8.48 million, and your general government departments are 14.46 million of that 99 million. Next slide, please. Our overall major initiatives this year for our 2021 proposed budget, we are recommending a 2% increase, which equates to $400,000 for blue, white, and general. Wages, yes. Your technology security administrator is $100,000. Our PD, police video and technology security admin position at $91,000. A crime scene technician at $52,840, a reclass of 5 park rangers at $97,830, and our overall parking services division of an additional $226,000. The $226,000 will be offset by our proposed increase in our parking revenues. Next slide, please. So this is a comparison of last year's general fund budget to this year's general fund budget. You'll see the 99.2 million this year compared to the 96.4 million from last year. It's an increase of 2.7 million, or 2.9%. The major contributors to that, we're actually seeing a decrease in our overall electrical costs with the move to the new city hall and about $133,000. We have a decrease of $1.2 million for the leases for the temporary space not being active anymore and moving to the new temporary city hall, or the new city hall, I'm sorry. We have an increase of $2.2 million for police department. That's your contractual services for wage increases. Fire department of $944,000, which are wage increases. Those are also contractual. ITS saw an increase of about $205,000. Part of that is the new position that we're recommending in ITS, along with bringing some of the technology and things like that along for the new city hall as well. Facilities saw an increase of $263,000. A lot of that's contractual and some personnel. Parks and grounds, or parking services division, saw $471,000 increase. And then recreation has $125,000, and a lot of that's bringing the Cultural Arts Center and Town Square online as well. Next slide, please. So this is a breakdown by department individually of the changes year over year that make up your total $2.7 million increase to the general fund. I've already gone through a lot of the major increases, the contractual obligations and things like that. Next slide, John. And these are the rest of the departments and their changes year over year. So your general funding sources at the 7.9 millage rate. Ad valorem taxes makes up 41.1 million, or 41.4% of that. Transfers from other funds, 18.5 million, or 18.6%. Your state shared revenues, 9.8 million, or 9.9%. And overall charges for services make up 8.1 million, or 8.2% of the 99 million. Next slide, please. Our major proposed revenue changes, as you'll see, property taxes gross make up $2.8 million. Net after our CRA is $2.2 million. We're expecting an increase for parking services of about $416,000. We are experiencing a little bit of a decrease in the building permits of $282,000 just based on town square. We do have an increase or a one-time transfer from our hurricane fund for some of the FEMA reimbursements and some of the projects being closed out of $1.2 million. Water and sewer, we're seeing an increase of $581,000 due to some of the revenues increasing and a little bit of an increase in percentage of the transfer. And one of our favorite things about this slide, the decrease in the use of fund balance. So last year we used a fund balance of 1.3 million. We're proposing in this budget a use of $0 for fund balance. Next slide, please. Your proposed tax versus the rollback rate. So at the millage rate of 7.9 million, or 7.9 mils, I should say, your expenditures would be 99,210,000. At the rollback rate of 7.491, total expenditures are still the 99 million. We would see a budget deficit of $1.9 million if we decided to go back to the rollback rate. I know. Okay, so your proposed ad valorem tax rate is 7.9 mils. It's not a rate increase. We're proposing to keep it at the same. The actual tax increase is 5.46% per the state trim calculations over the rollback rate. The overall citywide property values increased about 6.2%. And at the end of this, you will decide on the resolution at the end to the 7.9 mils if that's what you choose. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of the general fund balance. Last year, the city ended with $17.4 million in fund balance. The red line in the middle is your emergency reserves. We're required to keep 10% of your overall budget in emergency reserve. So last year at the 96 million, 9.6 of that was your emergency reserves. This year we're estimating to end fund balance at about 16.5 million, and your emergency reserve would be 9.9 million of that if we pass this budget as is. Next slide, please. Your overall expenditure summary by fund. General fund we're proposing is 99,210,000, or an increase of 2.7 million. Your enterprise funds, water and sewer is experiencing an increase of 1.2 million from 50,939,000 to 52,225,000. Solid waste experienced an increase of 234,000, and golf course is down 393,000. Your internal service funds, we're proposing fleet is actually down $4,872. Warehouse is up 79,000, and self-insurance 152,000 increase. Next slide, please. Your special revenue funds overall, last year's budget was 4.7. We're actually reducing the special revenue funds to 4.382. The majority of that is public art is down 609,000. Capital improvements are 60,010,836. Your proposed is 30,199,000. The majority of that is the utility capital improvements are decreasing significantly. And then your total debt service funds are up 77,000, and that's just based on the debt service. So your overall proposed went from $252 million to 226. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Maura. Oh, sorry, good feedback. Next, I'll ask if the City Commission has any questions. I'm not hearing any. So you have the
Mayor,
non-speaker? Yes.
I do have a question. I apologize, I was muted.
Okay.
Mara, when we had our individual meeting, we were discussing the impact of the millage rate on residential property. And I asked, what actually is the impact on residential property? Could you talk about that? I think I
Yeah.
have some extra slides that we didn't see in the PowerPoint.
There are, we added them, but I guess they didn't make it to the final presentation.
Yeah, John.
Yeah.
I'm off. Oh, no. I'm off
Okay,
now.
that's why.
Sorry.
So just in looking at the millage rate impact on a residential property, residential homesteaded properties are capped at the 2.3%. So if you're looking at an assessed value of $50,000, you would see an annual property increase of about $9. $150,000 assessed, you'd see an annual increase of about $27. Those are the homestead residential.
Okay.
On your commercial, if you're looking at the same 50,000 assessed, their annual property increase at the 6.2% would see an increase of about $24. So the overall impact at keeping it at the 7.9 on a $50,000 property is about $24, and on a homesteaded property it's about $9 per year.
All right.
So Mara, can you get us that slide tomorrow?
I will send that to you. Yes, Mayor.
No, for the presentation online, so that we'll have that available and uploaded correctly.
Yes.
Thank you. And then I had a question that I asked Tony, that if the millage rate goes to 4 decimals, could we go to 7.8999? Is that a possibility?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Legal to opine on that. Yeah, we can.
All right. So I guess the commission will have that discussion later on, but I appreciate that information.
Mayor, I have one more question. I see a discrepancy, and it could be that I'm just missing something. I'm looking at the revenue from the fire assessment. I just want to verify, is it 6.8 million? Is that right?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
And the reason I asked was I remembered a different number. So it's in the resolution, and we can come back to this later. I know we're eventually going to get to it, but in the resolution for the fire assessment, I thought it gave a different
On the
sum to
slide.
be assessed.
It's 8.2 here, but I think that's without the discounts.
That's yeah, that's a fair point.
Is
Right.
that the
I
discrepancy?
think Commissioner, I think the difference in the resolution, and Jim, you can correct me, if that 8.2 million you're seeing, Ty, is not reflecting discounts that are given for those that apply, that it's appropriate for, and then it discounted down to 6.8.
Are these the hardship discounts? Is that what you're referring to? Or is that something else?
We're struggling in the same room. We have to each mute each other's computer, so I apologize for the awkwardness.
Okay, we'll circle back to it later, but I understand that's the reason for the discrepancy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ty. And Justin, Christina, or Woodrow, can you hear me?
I'm fine at this time, Mayor.
No questions here.
Okay at this point.
I appreciate it. And if there's no further questions from the commission, we'll open it up to public comments. John, can you have the questions and raise hands function open for the attendees? And I'll ask the people who are in attendance here to go first.
Okay, those options have been enabled, Mayor Grant.
All right, thank you.
And for the purpose of conducting the public audience in person with you at the PD community meeting room. Please speak loudly and clearly into the microphone, as there is somewhat of an echo since it is not a direct connection for the audio into this GoToWebinar session. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Susan Hoyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I'm one of 3 members from the public here, so I just wanted to share that. Question, do we feel that, and I asked this last year, do we feel we have enough in reserves in case things start crashing and getting even worse?
I think, Susan, if you have all your questions.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, is there enough money in the fund to cover the trees? Because I know I've seen that tree canopy report that you guys will be seeing in about a week, and we need to be budgeting for 3,000 more trees. I mean, I know I've bought a couple and planted them this week, but that's, you know, a drop in the bucket. So is there enough money in the budget here to cover the trees that we're going to need to be putting in to meet the global warming mitigation report that levels that we need to meet? Next up, looking at the payroll, sorry, putting on my glasses. We have 2 major positions open. We have Rec and Parks. Last year, the person was being paid $104,000. The year prior was the same amount. The year 2017, they were being paid $101,666. Public Arts was $76,310 this last year. 2018 was $74,139. 2017 was $72,375. I think those are very highly paid positions, and maybe we should be looking to, you know, make the pay a little more, I guess, equal and appropriate for the position, or, you know, whatever's coming up. I don't know what the pay ranges are you're looking at, but it seems to me like you should be cutting some there. And I'm assuming the same with any other people who retire in the coming year. I want to say I want my paper copies, because there's no paper copies here for anybody. And you know I'm going to be here every year, and I'm going to want my paper copies. So please get them to me with the missing slides, which I got to say doesn't sound very good. And last of all, I hope at least one of those cameras for the police department is going to end up in Betty Thomas Park. As you all are well aware, we have a fight club problem in that park. And now I found out that the kid who threatened to shoot and kill everyone in my neighborhood who's been in jail for the last 2 years is getting out in January. His name is Evans. Yes, Vice Mayor. You were not privy to all the emails that went through when he was trying to kill supposedly everybody in my street, because he lives directly across the street from me. So I hope we're going to start getting more cameras in, so that as things deteriorate in January, you know, we're prepared. Thank you. Want me to stay up here? Oh, this is from last year. That's one thing we have.
Yeah.
How y'all doing? Torio, 07 Northeast 17th Avenue. You hear me? Can y'all hear me?
If you speak down.
Can you hear me, Woodrow Hayes?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. It's my first time seeing you since you've been elected.
You have your questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Please proceed with your questions.
I want to talk about, you know, we've seen some good artifact pictures, you know, we want to present to the budget meeting. We've seen some Black Lives Matter artifact that we thought would be good in front of the library. Being that we have all this asset money from last year to this year, it ain't been no events going on. Hasn't been anything going on in the city of Boynton since March. So we do have a lot of money. We just wondering from our community, what y'all think about a Black Lives Matter in front of the library. I'm here. Showing solidarity, but we still can't breathe. You know, still tension, still a lot of tension in the air. Still a lot of violence going on. you know? I wish that y'all bring the neighborhood police program back to the neighborhood. Y'all got to wait over there on Federal Highway and by Metro. It was on Martin Luther King, then it was on Aaron Sims. Now you have it waiting over there, over the railroad track, on Federal Highway, so far away. And every time I go to the neighborhood, the kids ask me, "Did you see Paramore yet?" I said, "Yeah, I see him all the time." They miss him. They can't get over there and see him. He can't leave out the office. Like, why would y'all take him and put him way over there by Metro, behind, I'm probably a good neighborhood over there. It's a nice neighborhood. I don't know the name of it, but it's a nice neighborhood back there behind Metro. I thought the neighborhood program was for us. Kids get interacting, get a bridge with the police department, or whoever. Like, what happened with that? Like, what, like, you know, nobody tell us nothing. Y'all just up and move. Nobody said, they ain't say nothing to us. You know? And we just, you know, we would like to see our commissioner sometime come to our neighborhood. We can go to Horn. At least, we know the COVID-19 out here. I'm out here every day in it. You know, if you ask me where our commissioner at, I'm like, well, I don't know where he is. He out of town. He out of town. He out of town. You get now. You get the city shirt on. You know, District 2 would like to see you, man.
Thank you.
We would like to see you.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak? This opportunity for public comments, you'll have another opportunity right before we adopt the proposed millage rate. All right. John, do we have anybody that has had their hand raised or questions to be asked?
Mayor Grant, I do not, but just for the public's sake, if you would like to participate by providing comments at this time, use the GoToWebinar interface. There is a raise hand icon along the bottom side of the portal. Click that, and that will indicate that you would like to provide a comment, and we will unmute your audio at that time. You can participate with your comments. But currently, I do not see any, Mayor Grant. If you'd like to wait a few seconds.
All right. What I'd like to do is that we can move forward, and if anyone, and keep the question and raise hands open, because I see some people from the public that show non-attentive, and if they have a question or like to speak, I don't want to just close it right now, but I'd like to move on to our next general fund item. And if anybody raises their hand or has a question that we can move forward, we'll take it when it's appropriate.
All right, Mayor, so we have the police department lined up first. John, if you could pull up those slides.
Okay, and first of all, let me find
Chief Gregory.
Chief Gregory. And
All right. Chief Gregory, you're still self-muted.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And Chief, I'm going to elevate you to the role of panelist. And at that point, I believe you might be able to advance your own slides if you're in a position to do so, if that would be okay.
Certainly.
All right, let's give this a try. And I will be loading up your presentation right now. And I'm going to give you keyboard and mouse control.
Okay, at this point, I still see the question slide. I don't see the my presentation.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Are you able to click?
I've tried clicking, John, and it's not moving.
I will take that back then.
Okay.
Okay, I will advance to your next slide.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. Appreciate, this is Michael Gregory, Police Chief. I appreciate the opportunity to review the Police Department proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. As you see before you is a summary of our three main primary divisions within the Police Department. And you can see the differences from last year to the current year, percent change that is a reflection of those differences. I'll just want to point out, without going through each of these numbers in detail, unless there's questions, that you'll see that we place a priority in what we do on our patrol division. The officers on the street are patrolling, and that's reflected in our budget, where you see the Uniform Services Division with the lion's share of the overall police department budget. The Office of the Chief also includes our administrative and financial functions, and they represent the smallest proportion of the budget in the police department. Lastly, you see support services there at $12,280,000, which reflects a 2% increase, and that includes our detective and investigative units, as well as our communications section, training section, are all included in the support services role. So we certainly believe that the patrol section and the first responder element of our department is the primary service that the community expects, and that's reflected in our budget by those dollars as well. You can go to the next slide, John. We'll just cap briefly what those changes from last year to this year in each of those three divisions are reflective of. And in the Police Uniform Services Division, that's basically a $1.3 million increase, primarily attributed to the 2020 collective bargaining agreement. So that's basically salaries and benefits. Next slide, John. That slide shows you the percentage allocation in the lower right-hand corner. And what it was telling you is that if you go backwards one, John, there you go. You'll see that, well, it looks like the percentages fell off, but the over 90% of that budget is reflected as personnel costs. Next slide, John. In the offices of the chief, once again, our largest increase there is reflective of the changes in our collective bargaining agreement. So we're obviously honoring our contracts with our labor groups. And the second change there at the bottom reflects an increase for our fleet pre-funding, which is the allocation of dollars for vehicle replacements and maintenance. 46% of that overall budget in the Office of the Chief is personnel costs as well, and 27% are the operating costs. Next slide. In the police support services area, you'll see again the increase that we have for the particular areas related to our collective bargaining agreement. But in this particular section, we also have additional personnel. We are requesting a police video and technology security administrator. As many of you are aware, we have spent a good amount of time over the past year working on consolidating and enhancing our building security with specific regard to our access control system, the door cards that we use to get in and out of doors, as well as our security camera systems. The city has a number of facilities, and unfortunately, as we've opened those facilities and updated them, we've historically allowed the different technologies to be implemented in each of those buildings, and those technologies don't always communicate well together. So with the construction of the new city hall and the new police headquarters and fire headquarters, we had the opportunity to bring in a new enterprise-wide access control and security camera system. All of those new facilities have that system incorporated in it, and we've already expanded it out to Sarah Sims Park as well. So we've identified as the particular technology and software to use citywide, and we'll be phasing the remaining buildings onto that software. The key part of that is now we've made this major investment in those technologies. We need to have someone who's capable of managing oversight, planning new rollouts, as well as liaisoning with our subcontractors that support those different systems to keep them all functioning, working, and where we need to, expanding in the future. So that position will be the one position responsible for citywide support of our access control system, as well as our security camera system and several other technologies such as license plate readers, our internal affairs complaint management system, and a few others that deal with security and videos. We also have requested one crime scene technician. We currently have had 3, most recently in the last several budget years. Historically, at one point we had 4 crime scene technicians. So we're looking to return back to the level that we were before. We do see a great deal of work, and we've done a brief survey of other police departments in Palm Beach County, and we see that our technicians are at, and in some cases above, the workload of some of the other large departments in Palm Beach County. So we find it very important to bring in this additional crime scene technician to address collection of evidence, reducing the number of call outs and burnout that our crime scene technicians experience, because there's only 3 of them to go around. So they get called out quite a bit to come back into work and collect evidence at crime scenes and traffic homicide type scenes. So this will do a lot towards the personnel side of the issue of reducing burnout and the overtime cost of calling people out repeatedly as well. And then, of course, their ability to manage the volume that they're experiencing will be better served by having fewer cases each. So adding this additional technician to go back to a total of 4 will help us reduce their individual caseload, allow them to spend more time digging into those cases and trying to find the evidence that we need to present a case in court and for prosecution. And the last position is actually a reclassification of an evidence custodian. We've had 1 full-time evidence custodian in the police department, and we've had 1 part-time. As that part-timer, that we have now, we see that we actually need a full-time position, so we'll have 2. Previously, we had a police officer that was assisting with that role. He's no longer with us, he's retired, and that role is, I believe, is best served, a police position role is best served doing sworn officer type activities. So that left us with the 1 full-time civilian evidence technician and a part-timer, and based on the workload that we've been experiencing, we fully believe that there's more than enough work for that position to be moved from part-time to full-time. And that's what our request comprises of. That's the high-level overview for the support services section. And you'll again also see on the chart to the lower right-hand side, 88% of that budget is all personnel costs, and only 11% actually goes into operating expenses. Next slide, please, John. Here I have an opportunity to quickly run you through some successes, challenges, and initiatives for the upcoming, for the current fiscal year. Some successes we'd like to tout and make sure you're aware of is that so far, year to date, the first 6 months of the year, we've seen a 19% reduction in Part 1 crime, UCR Part 1 crime, which is considered serious crime, measured by the FBI and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. This is in comparison to last year, the first 6 months of last year, compared to the first 6 months of this year. So we're seeing a substantial 19% reduction. While certainly some of that is related to the stay-at-home period that we had with COVID-19. However, I certainly believe that the reduction would not be as significant had it not been for the hard work of the men and women in the police department, our patrol officers, our detectives, who've been doing a lot of proactive activity to be able to help us realize this large drop in our crime rate. So we're very proud of that, and we're looking to try to maintain this as much as we can through the remainder of the year. We're also pleased with the near completion of the new police headquarters, where the mayor is at this evening in the community meeting room. It's a very, very nice modern police station. We have just under 60,000 square feet of space allocated to our evidence section, our patrol operations, our detectives and investigators, our traffic unit, all the major elements of the police department are working from that location now, reunited for the first time this week. We're experiencing now. We're also proud that we were at the last commission meeting. You gave us authority and approval to move forward with the upgrade to the Premier 1 CAD RMS and mobile system. The CAD, this system is like the heart of any police department, no matter where you go. From the 911 call coming in, it touches that system. To the officers being dispatched to a crime scene, it touches that system. To the officers writing their police reports after all the action is over on the scene, it touches this system. And then when the public comes in every day, they want to pick up a copy of a report or a traffic action report or review a traffic citation, it touches this particular system. So this is the lifeblood of technology within the police department, and we're extremely excited about the approval, and we're working closely with Motorola to quickly get this implemented at the first half of next year. We also have, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, the implementation of the enterprise-wide access control and security camera system. I've already explained what that is, and we're excited that that's already underway with the new buildings, and we'll be transitioning older ones on as appropriate. And then you previously approved the purchase of the Command Central Aware software, which will be the primary software operating in our real-time crime center. It serves to connect to all the other systems that we have throughout the city and be a central point of contact for situational awareness of what's going on and how to dispatch and coordinate our resources being sent to these incidents, hopefully in a near real-time manner, so that we can solve more crime and bring that crime rate down even lower. Challenges that we'll be facing and we anticipate, obviously replacing outdated and a software and equipment. That's the path that we've been on the last 2 years that I've been here. This is a critical area for us, not just because the software is older, it doesn't work really well. That in and of itself should be enough to want to replace it. But in this day and age, we have to be cognizant of cybersecurity concerns. Operational importance is important. Operational performance, like I said, is important. But in addition to that, we've got these cyber issues. People are constantly trying to breach police departments and city government, and it's incumbent upon us to make sure we have technology that is modern, that has the latest patches, that has the latest versions, the equipment that is up to date, to be able to fend off and defend us from attack. The next challenge will be continuing to managing our police and patrol response during the COVID incident. This isn't a sprint. It's clearly turned into be a marathon, and we expect having to operate with some level of modified police response through the remainder of this year is what I expect. I don't see anything happening with a vaccine in the next 60, 90, 120 days. And then once it is available, it will take time to get that fully distributed throughout the population so we can get that herd immunization that it talks about. So in the interim, we're going to have to continue to be wary and careful and safe, donning PPE on calls for service, reprioritizing which calls we respond to, and trying to continue to be agile in how we respond to and manage policing in a COVID world today. And then lastly, I'll mention as a top challenge for us is in the midst of all of this that's going on with the calls for police reform and changes in how police operate in our society to COVID and the rest is trying to hire police officers, our recruiting efforts, trying to find good candidates that we want to don our uniform and badge and firearm and patrol our cities, trying to do that at a distance safely for our staff who are interviewing these people, for the HR staff that are interviewing and in contact with these candidates, and still being able to test folks satisfactorily to make sure that we don't have bad apples sneaking into the bunch. That will be a challenge that we're looking forward to facing, and we'll continue. We have been so far this summer, and we're going to continue moving forward until we get through this. As far as initiatives for the upcoming fiscal year, we definitely plan on continuing our community policing programming initiatives and expanding those as much as possible with the environment and COVID and everything that we're working with, as well as our training program. We want to see that continued and enhanced. The next bullet talks specifically about 21st century police training curriculum, and that's important to me as well. That's where we start talking about things that people have been bringing up as far as societal change and how we police our community and how the officers are trained to deal with diverse communities. And that's important. We started with fair and partial policing previously. We need to go back and revisit that this year, or this coming fiscal year, as well as procedural justice and some other elements of training that we believe will be beneficial to officers operating in today's world, with all of the concerns that our constituents have been bringing to our attention, that we hear on these Zoom calls, that we see on social media. We need to make sure that our training is staying current with what's going on in America and in Boynton Beach, with the expectation of this community. And lastly, the integration of the Real-Time Crime Center into our daily operations. As several of you have come by for tours of the new building, you've been to our beautiful empty room. We hope to have the equipment arriving soon and installed, and you'll be able to come in and see it in live and in action. But I expect that it'll be important to how we establish our policies to integrate that room into our daily operations, not just one-time special events, but on a reoccurring basis. And that's what we look forward to occurring this upcoming fiscal year. So at a high level, those are some of our successes that we're very proud of, the challenges that we look forward to facing and solving, and the initiatives we look to bring forward to help reduce crime in Boynton Beach this fiscal year, as well as making it the best city we can. That's it. Next slide, John, is the question slide, if there are any.
I'll open it up to the City Commission.
Yeah, Police Chief.
Yes, sir.
Question for you. You talked a little bit about recruiting new police officer. Would you talk a little more about what you see changing and how we what are our qualifications? Are we making any changes to the qualification that we bring in based on the situation that we're in worldwide? Can
Yes,
you talk
sir.
a little more about that?
Absolutely. And we actually started that process before we got into this mess. Fortunately, last year we recognized that we were facing real challenges with the selection process of new hires and applicants and how we process those candidates. So we went about updating two key areas. One is the testing and evaluation of applicants, and the second is the qualifications of those applicants. So last year we worked very closely and got a lot of support from our HR department, and we were able to modify the standards for police applicants. One of those was ensuring that they were had 60 college credits. While they don't need an associate's degree, they do need to have 60 college credits to apply. We look at their background for where they may have demonstrated at some point in their life a tendency for community service and giving back to the community. We think that's a good trait for candidates. While it's not a all-out requirement, it is something that we prefer in our candidates, that they show that they've demonstrated some element of wanting to contribute to society and give back and work in a service oriented role, because that's what our job is. We're servants of this community. So we feel that it will be a good fit to find people who have experience doing that coming in to a role of service. On the selection process side, we've implemented an online examination to be a police officer here in Boynton Beach, and that worked out. Not expecting this, but it worked out really well in our favor, because we're now in an environment where it's very challenging to try to test people because of COVID. So having an online application process and an online testing process, candidates don't have to be corralled into a big room and necessarily in face-to-face with people. They can do it online. So that's helped us as well. We're continuing to accept applications and review those in a digital environment and move forward. So those are just a couple of the areas that we're looking at. As far as what impact this will have moving forward, I know a lot of folks have the model of, hey, cast the net out broadly, like for national searches and statewide searches for candidates. I think in this environment, with trying to social distance and be cognizant of COVID issues, with being in contact with people and trying to bring people in, and the limitations that so many people have on traveling right now, That's going to be difficult for agencies to stand by this cast a broad net. I'm more of the mindset of looking locally and trying to build relationships locally and people who are familiar with our community, people who may be from our community, even the broader community of South Florida, because there's not a lot of significant difference, but you'll see between Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade County for candidates that have a multicultural background, you might say, and have a service orientation. I think we can find candidates like that locally. So we're going to be looking to focus our resources to looking in South Florida, looking at Central Florida and down for our candidates, and using that as our area we look to harvest new applicants.
Thank you, Chief.
Certainly.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Chief, could you talk about what you're doing differently for the recruiting process, in addition to, or maybe I should say, the marketing process? I know this is a challenge, but are we devoting enough resources to marketing? What do you think needs to be done to get us to fill these positions?
Yeah, that's one of those challenge areas, like I mentioned on the slides. Historically, police recruiting looked a lot like going to job fairs. It looked a lot like going and standing at school, colleges, and or doing presentations at police academies to recruits who hadn't been hired by a specific police department yet. They were self-sponsoring. And now in this environment, we can't really do that anymore. We can't go physically to these job fairs because they aren't hosting them anymore. In fact, the police academies have been closed for several months now. We're hoping to see some open back up in August. But even then, we're not looking to go and grab large groups and host these sort of recruiting fairs because of social distancing needs. So it will change how we need to market. We'll need to do more digital work. We'll need to do more advertising in channels that our particular candidates that we're looking for are listening to, whether that be radio stations, whether that be some sort of online ads on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and the others. We're going to need to look at retooling that marketing campaign moving forward, at least for the near future.
And Chief, my more specific question was, do you have the resources already to do that?
We have resources that we'll be bringing to bear on that. Yes.
All right, great.
Chief, I have a few questions. One is, people have been asking me about defund the police, and I say no, it's not something that we're looking to do here in Boynton Beach. But I tell them, and I'm glad to see that was part of your initiatives, that we're going to move forward with community policing instead of policing the community. Not everyone knows the definition of community policing, so I was hoping that you could briefly describe what community policing is and how is it different than in the past.
Well, community policing now has been around for quite a while. And actually, when I joined the department 2 years ago, there's a community policing program in place. As you heard reference to earlier, the neighborhood officer program, that's a community policing program. Our crime prevention unit, they're very engaged in a community policing program, dealing with both ends of the spectrum, our senior community, as well as our young adult community here in Boynton Beach. And they've been very, very effective in those two areas with the limited folks that we've got assigned to those programs. So to step back and say, as far as what we see is what does community policing look like and how does it work? It's basically a building of partnerships where the police department isn't focused solely on answering calls for service and enforcing the law. It's a reshaping of the department, reorganizing of the department to focus on building relationships and partnerships with the community and listening to what it is, what the priorities of the community members are. Because as we get to know them and talk to them, we'll find out that the priorities are not the same, perhaps in the area around Cherry Hill, when you talk to the folks who live there, versus the concerns that you might hear from someone in here at Hunter's Run. Each community is unique and distinct. And unless you're talking and engaged with each of them, you don't really understand what the department can't really understand what their expectations of the police department truly are. And if we're not in line with their expectations, then we're not on the same page as a police department and as a community. So a big part of that community policing concept is partnerships and engaging with our residents, our businesses, and the like. Another part of it is being agile enough and flexible enough to transform ourselves. A key element of community policing is transformation. That is, once we find out what those expectations of the community are and what we need to do better, we need to be able to be flexible enough to change our organization, to change the way we do business. Perhaps we don't need certain units anymore because other units are more important now, and we have to be flexible enough to do a reorganization, to bring on new technologies, perhaps find new ways of communicating with our community members. So that transformation, those partnerships, all big parts, big elements of what a community policing philosophy looks like. And that's where I really see the opportunity here is for us to transition. We started with a program that includes the neighborhood officer program and a program that includes our crime prevention personnel. But where I would like to go is where the community policing is a philosophy in the department, and every patrol officer is involved in it. Every detective is involved in it. And we could reach a lot more of our community if we spread out how many people are actually practicing community policing strategies every single day. It should be a part of what we talk about when we go over our review of crime problems in the city, when we talk about the needs of different communities who we've been having Zoom calls with or the like, how we do our investigations on the Detective Bureau, the type of equipment and apparatus we buy. All of that can be impacted differently when you employ a community policing philosophy department-wide versus having a program that a couple of people are assigned to and the rest of the organization says, well, that's their job. We want to transition to where it's every police officer's job, it's every records clerk job, it's every communication dispatcher job to be a part of our community policing philosophy, a part of our community policing strategy.
Thank you, and that's important so that everyone understands that we're moving more forward instead of from the programs to the philosophy of the police department. The two other things is, one is how is Boynton Beach Police Department dealing with cyber crimes? Do we have the staff and the technology? Because I believe that is actually a crime that has been increasing of what I've heard throughout the country now.
Well, cybercrime is quite a broad category of criminal activity. I'll say that when it comes down to people using the cyber realm and technology to exploit and or manipulate and or extort individuals and people, we are very effective there. We have several detectives who are highly trained and capable of doing those investigations where there's perhaps some sort of financial exploitation, where there may be sexual exploitation over the internet. We have people who are actually experts in that particular area and have been involved in teaching other departments on best practices and working those type of investigations. We are actually on an internet crimes task force with federal and state partners to try to corral in joint resources to fight child exploitation and human trafficking that's been practiced via the internet and cyber realm. So yeah, we've been very, very effective in that area, and we continue to be so. We're going to keep those resources dedicated to that because the problem isn't getting smaller. On the other side of that cyber crime piece, I don't know if that's where you're going, but there's what we've seen a lot of hacking and ransomware attacks and those types of things. We are not so much the first responder in that realm. We do defer to our federal partners and our state partners in the Department of Homeland Security when it comes to people who've experienced ransomware attacks or hacking into their organizational or corporate systems. That's not an area that we focus great attention on.
All right, I appreciate that. And the last is regarding community service officers and like the Explorer program. How do we create that career path to becoming police officers for in the years to come?
Well, that's a great one because I think a big tool that we can utilize in the future is using those folks that are what's commonly referred to as homegrown officers, and that's people who participate in our Explore program. We are with them through high school and working with them and training them and showing them how to practice law enforcement and public safety and what our role is generally in those areas. We try to meet with them regularly to help keep them on the right track and mentor them. And there's no better reward than to see those folks transition into a full-time position as an employee of the police department. And then there is a path there. We do have in last year's budget, CSOs have been increased. Our number of CSOs were increased. We've already conducted interviews for those folks. I believe there's a couple candidates in background investigations already. If not, they'll be going into background very soon. So I'm really excited to look to try to grow our Explorer program and our CSO program to ultimately see those folks transition into police officer type roles. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think that is a more popular trend. You'll see starting today and moving forward in a number of agencies trying to exploit growing our own employees.
All right. Thank you. And
Absolutely.
Christina or Justin, do you have any other questions or comments?
Mayor, no, I have no comments or no questions. My only comment is just to commend the police chief and us, as well as our police department, for the work that has been and continues to be done to partner with our community members and to continue to progress the efforts in community policing. In addition, just for me personally, taking the tour of our new police department with the police chief was another eye-opening experience to really learn and appreciate that much more what our police department does and everything that they do to serve our community. And one of the things I'd like for us to explore as we move forward and as we talk about budgets and employees and personnel is how we maintain the mental health of our police officers. You know, we talk about mental health a lot. We talk about how we help the public, but we sometimes forget that those men and women who are putting their lives in danger each and every single day, and the things that they see, it stays with them. It stays with them, and sometimes it's hard for them to go home and you know, talk about that to their spouses or significant others, because maybe they don't understand that. It's hard for them to find other people in the general public who may be able to relate, and so sometimes they internalize these things, and you know, and I'm sure it contributes to a lot of the issues that we're seeing in our environment today. So that is something that I would like to explore and see how we can further open up that door of talking about how we either add a staff member who is a mental health professional, or we find a way to either partner up with nearby agencies to share the cost of that. I know it's something to be explored. It's completely, you know, new. I don't know how many other departments may be doing this or something, but Lori, I'd like to explore that a little bit more with you in the near future and see if there's any way to go down that route, because I want to protect our law enforcement officers who protect and serve us each and every single day. Thank you.
Commissioner, just the chief and I have had this discussion on several occasions and are working. I've challenged him to put together, you know, a more robust wellness program. We've just instituted one in our fire department that was employee initiated in terms of what they feel comfortable with and what type of resources we would need to make available. And PD is going to be doing something very similar.
Thank you. Look forward to hearing more about that.
All right. Seeing no more, moving on to the fire department. Thank you, Chief Gregory.
Thank you.
No.
Okay, let me find Ray Carter.
So there was public comments to speak. It's not after each different fund. It's, yeah, so before, probably tomorrow, we'll have another opportunity for public comments. And then we also have two other hearings to approve the final millage rate.
John, can you pull up the fire? Okay.
Can you hear me now? Everybody, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Great. Thank you, John. Did you give me control of the slides? Should I?
I think I've abandoned that approach. It didn't seem to work, so I'll just
No.
advance them for you.
Okay, sounds reasonable to me. Thank you.
Good.
Mayor, commissioners, leadership team, members of the public who are attending tonight, thank you for allowing me, Ray Carter, your fire chief, to present our fiscal year 2021 budget. If you would, John, next slide, please. Yeah, the fire department has three different budgets. Obviously, the larger of the three is the fire rescue budget, which is the portion of our department that delivers the emergency response services. That's where the majority of our money is spent. As you can see, we've got just shy of $1 million increase this year in our budget, which represents a 3.9% increase from last year. Our community standards division, which is our fire and life safety and code enforcement, had a very small, moderate increase of 0.2% this year. And then our emergency management budget, which is really the budget for operating our EOC in times of local declared disasters, had a modest increase of about $3,000, which represents a 10.5% increase in that budget. And I'll speak to each one of those budgets as we move along here. The first one, the fire rescue budget, our total increase in that budget was $961,203. Again, the 3.9% increase. Majority of that was personnel cost related, $794,500 increase in that part of the budget. The majority of that, the lion's share of that came because of items from the collective bargaining agreements, insurance costs, and pension costs, all which fall under personnel costs. We did not add any personnel in this division. We are fully staffed at this point because we had a hire about 4 months ago. We hired to capacity of our shift personnel, which is 135 people. We have 12 administrative staff that oversees the budget and administers to the needs of those shift personnel, making sure that things get purchased, making sure that personnel get managed and things of that nature. The operating part, or the operating expenses for the department, increased by about $213,000. The majority of that is thanks to you all because of our increase in purchasing new turnout gear, which meets the latest standards for firefighting equipment and protective clothing. So again, that was the majority of that increase in operating expenses. We did have a decrease in capital outlay, yet we are still doing some improvements to our stations 2, 4, and 5. We are finishing off an initiative to install a vehicle exhaust capture system, which captures the exhaust inside the bays of the station so it doesn't migrate into the living quarters. And again, that's a safety issue for our personnel who work at our 5 fire stations. So we'll be finishing up that initiative next year. Next slide, please, John. The community standards portion of our budget, again, a small personnel cost increase, wage increases, and insurance costs were the majority of that. No new personnel in either the fire and life safety division or the code enforcement division. A modest increase in operating expenses across the board. And then we did have a decrease in capital expenditures, and most of that was because of vehicle purchases this year that will not be happening next year. Next slide, please, John. Thank you. The emergency management budget, an increase of a little over $3,000. There's no personnel cost in this budget because we do not have an emergency manager. One of our deputy chief's position and currently an assistant chief's position, because of that vacancy, oversees the emergency management end of our business should we need to open the emergency operations center during a time of an emergency. We had a slight decrease in the operating expense, but we increased the capital expenditures because we will be buying a new laptop with some software, communication software to go with that laptop for operating in the EOC when it's activated. Next slide, please, John. Our successes, we did complete station number 1. It is occupied and operating now. We have 2 units running out of there. We've upgraded our cardiac monitors through a grant from the federal government. All of our cardiac monitors will be replaced this coming year, funded by grant from the federal government with the latest and greatest technology. So again, that continues to push forward our concern for cardiac patients, stroke patients. These new monitors will tell us so much more about a patient's condition as we deal with them in the field before we actually get them to the hospital, thus allowing us the opportunity to give the hospital the right information to have teams ready to treat them appropriately when they hit the emergency room door. Again, expansion of our turnout gear replacement program that I spoke about, that was a huge success, and it will continue on into next year. This next kind of bullet here is a little bit of a double-edged sword. Over the last year or so, our Fire and Life Safety Division, our Code Enforcement Division, and our EMS Billing Division have all tweaked their software and tweaked their methods of operation to help increase revenue collection in all of those fronts. Unfortunately, over the last 4 months or so, we've seen a downturn in our ability to collect funds because of COVID. And it's people are holding on to their money a little more, so they're not paying the bills kind of as quickly. And also our call volume is down because of people worrying about contracting the COVID virus through calling for help or going to emergency rooms and things like that. So that's been a little bit of a double-edged sword. We increased the capabilities for collection. We saw big increases in collections to start with during the year, but now we've seen a downturn in that. So that becomes a challenge dealing with that continuing cost of COVID-19. And again, the double-edged sword of we're reducing our revenue collections because of COVID-19, but we're also seeing some of our operating costs increase because of COVID-19. So that will be a continuing challenge, I think, even into next year, and possibly throughout a good portion of the entire year next year, depending on when, again, like Chief Gregory spoke about, depending on when we get some type of a vaccine so that it can be administered broad scope across the population here in Boynton Beach. Another challenge that we're facing now is timely replacement of our vehicles. Our vehicles are extremely technology driven, and they incorporate a lot of safety features mandated by federal standards and things like that when we build our units. We used to be able to get a fire truck built in about 9 to 12 months. Now it's going to take somewhere between 18 and 20 months at the outside most. And the reason for that is because the factories that build them, their employees are staying home. They've got about half of their staffs. So it takes longer to build these units. The challenge for us is how do we manage that whenever we're dealing with a single year budget? We're trying to purchase equipment on time when it's supposed to be purchased and get it in the front door in the same budget year. It becomes rather difficult to do that with those kinds of build times. On the initiative side of things, we have initiated a rezoning or remapping of our different response zones, especially with the opening of the new Fire Station 1 and the 2 units running out of there. We've also are putting in some computer program features with upgrading inventory control at the stations, things like that. And of course, the last initiative, it would be much appreciated on my part if you guys allow me to get you a new fire chief fairly quickly so I can go back to being retired. With that, John, the next slide. Any questions from the group?
Nice.
All right. Any questions from the City Commission? Comments? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Chief Carter, now that Fire Station 1 has been completed, could you, if you're able to at this time, could you talk about the future of Fire Station 3? I think it might be our oldest fire station, if I'm not mistaken. It's in the heart of District 4 on Minor and Congress. Are there any
Correct.
plans in the works for that? And what do you think of the future for that?
Absolutely, we are planning on replacing that station. Just about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I received a conceptual drawing for that station replacement. What the plan is that we will build on that site to the east of the existing building. There's a large parking lot area. The plan is to build the new structure in that location while the existing station continues to operate from the existing building. Therefore, we don't have to move units to other stations. We're not taking personnel and response units out of that zone to build a new building. We have the property there to build a new building at the same time we respond out of the old one. Once the new one is built and occupied, the old structure will be taken down and that property will be used for whatever public purpose the city sees fit. I do believe there may be a plan there to incorporate some additional features in the gun range and offices that are there for the PD.
Great, thank you. And Lori or Chief, is this something around the order of 2022 or 2023? What are we thinking?
We need to find about $5 million. So
Okay.
we have some work to do. We have a good
Yeah.
plan and idea. Now we need to identify funding.
All right. I'll circle back on that later, but yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Ray, thank you again for coming back and leading the fire department once more.
My pleasure.
Yes, Commissioner Haig.
Chief Carter, it's nice to hear your voice again.
Likewise, yours.
Okay, I don't know whether or not this for you, Lori, or not, but just I want to have some talk on it. You know, with the talk about going to category 6 for hurricanes and all that kind of stuff, and I think the projection is that hurricane is going to get worse in the future. Are we building our buildings to withstand certain level of the categories that they have, like the new fire station number 1? Was it built to withstand category 5? And with the new Boynton Beach Police Department, did we build that to category 5? And what's the future down the road as you see it? Where are we now?
Just talking to Colin, I think our new buildings are built to be able to withstand up to 180, 185 mile an hour winds. So that's their, Miami-Dade standards? Yeah, the Miami-Dade standards. Yeah, I haven't heard about a category 6 yet. I know there has been discussions with from the Hurricane Center on whether or not Mother Nature is going to get more fierce on us. But I think, I think we do a good job. We're in a safe space. Should we get a storm in both police and fire 5, namely with our EOC being there. It's a hardened facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Katz-Romulus.
No questions, Mayor.
None at this time either.
Appreciate it. All right. Thank you, Chief. We'll move on to Public Works.
Okay. Andrew Mack, you have been unmuted.
Okay, great. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission. John, if you want to go ahead and get my presentation loaded up.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Just going to give you a general summary of the Public Works budget. Our admin division, we had a small increase in that division. And then facilities, we had a 13%. And I'll go into more detail of each different division and what the increases are or decreases were. Facilities was a 13% increase. And then streets had a 4.1% increase. Engineering had a 0.4% decrease. Next slide, John. Parks and Grounds had a 7.9% increase. The cemetery had a 5.8% increase, and the mausoleum had a 5.9% increase. Next slide, John. So some of the highlighted changes, as I said, facilities had a 13% increase. Funding was allocated in the salary accounts to implement a new career path in this division. This is something that we're doing across the board to make sure that we have a mechanism to keep talent within the city, to bring people from promote within. This is something that we're doing across all the divisions. Another cost increase was the software and maintenance was increased to cover implementing Transcendent Asset Management software. This is a new software that we've implemented to maintain all these beautiful new facilities. This will help us do capital planning and doing maintenance on those buildings as well. Another increase in the facilities division was contractual services. As you know, we have new buildings that are coming back online, which we just opened an RFQ, which will be coming to you for award, or was just recently awarded. We're now negotiating those contracts for the maintenance of those facilities, the City Hall, the Cultural Center, Fire Station 1, Park, and the amphitheater. And additionally, the training was increased to support the certifications as part of the career path in this division. Next slide, John. Streets division, we had an increase in the street lighting budget. This was to cover the new FPLES lighting in the town square project. Some of the nice, beautiful new street lights you see in the town square. And then the same thing, we had an increase in the training line item to cover certifications as a part of the career path. In the Parks and Grounds division, we had an increase. Funding was allocated again in the salary accounts to implement a new career path. Again, we're doing the career path to promote within and keep and train our staff. Funding was also allocated to reclass some part-time park maintenance employees to full-time. This allowed us to reduce our contractual services as we transition some of our maintenance from outsourced vendors to in-house staff. So that was a plus for us. We also increased some of our chemicals and our capital equipment to do in-house fertilizer treatment at our various parks and locations. Next slide. Some of our successes, and I'll go through these a little bit deeper. Through our engineering department division, we developed a 5-year road rehab program using GIS software. Unfortunately, I wanted to demo this at our budget meeting, but I will do that when we do our award for the next year. It's a pretty robust software that we created, and I'll give you we'll show you a few slides that was created from that in our CIP plan. This year, we completed 6,500 linear feet of asphalt resurfacing. We completed the move to City Hall, the police department, fire station from our temp locations. We implemented electronic employee action request. This is a pilot project that we worked with Human Resources and their NeoGov system. This is the system that we use to do changes with employees. So we automated that whole process, as well as we're automating another pilot project with HR, our supervisor incident report process. It was a way for us to streamline how we handle that and just make sure that we're capturing all those incidents. Another implemented a pilot project with our probationary employee evaluation process with HR. This is helping evaluate our probationary employees to make sure they're the right fit for the department and divisions. We are currently working with ITS, Finance, and Human Resources, again, as a part of another pilot project to do electronic payroll and timekeeping. I know that other departments have electronic payroll systems. We're looking and piloting a process that would go enterprise-wide, and I'll speak to that a little later in the CIP. And then the other thing that we implemented this year was our online customer request and report system, our MyCivic application. And this actually went live on our website now. So if customers or the public encounter a problem in the city, they can go right onto our website and log that, and it is a fully automatic system that goes right from the customer right to the person who needs to fix the pothole or a broken swing. So that's another exciting part of the projects we've implemented. Some of the challenges that we have, automation of our capital planning process and then integrating it with our financial accounting software. This is kind of related to our ERP system and how we manage our capital process. That's something that we're looking at in the future. I know that finance has our ERP vendor coming in to look at how we're utilizing our software. So I'm hoping that we can utilize our existing software with just some tweaking. Also, again, automating our project management process with our financial accounting software. Some of these systems are two different systems that don't talk to each other, so it does become a little bit problematic in getting real-time information. And then the other challenges that we have is rising construction and material costs. That has slowed down a little bit with the COVID, but we're still seeing definitely increases in costs and materials. Some of the new initiatives, as I spoke about, were the career path for Parks and Grounds Division and the Facilities Division. And again, the implementation of the Transcendent Asset Management Software. Currently, we are in phase 1 of that, which is all the town square buildings and a few select buildings. We're then rolling this out phase 2, which will be all of our city assets, all of our buildings, which is next fiscal year. And then the last thing initiative that we have is we're going to update the cemetery and mausoleum policy and procedures. This is really related to what people can have out in the cemetery and what cannot be out there. Obviously, that's something that we're looking at that we get a lot of customer calls about. Next slide. All right. So our fleet management division, we have a 6.3% increase in the operating budget and a 9% increase in the fleet replacement fund budget. Next slide. Some of the highlighted changes are salaries, pension, and FICA and benefit costs were due to some of the promotions as we did implement a career path in this division and as well as filling some of those vacancies. We are looking to reclass our service writer to service writer analyst. This is to help to do a little bit more of the analytics and look at our data. We're a data-driven division, so this is a data-driven division as well. So it gives us real-time information to give out to our user departments. Funding was allocated in the computer and software maintenance to implement a new fleet management software. It's called Faster Web Core product. Our current software has been a little bit challenging, so we're looking to implement a new software. Funding was also allocated in our building improvements to purchase an electronic key management system. Currently, we don't have a electronic system to manage all of our keys. As you know, we have over 700 assets in the fleet department, and managing those keys can be problematic. And then the last part was we've seen an increase in our replacement costs this year due to the replacement cycle. Next slide. Some of the successes we saw in the fleet division, we completed our comprehensive analysis of the fleet operations by the outside consultant. We implemented that career path, and we've moved all those employees and transferred them into their new positions. Again, some of the challenges we see is the outdated fleet management software, and then competition for labor with the private sector. Some of the new initiatives that we're currently working on and will carry into next fiscal year are development of service level agreements with our user departments. We want to put our money where our mouth is. Obviously, we want to make sure that what we say we're going to do for the departments, we're going to make sure that we follow through. And then document and update some of our policies and procedures. Some of them right now are more verbal than they are in written, so we're looking to document some of them as well. Next slide. In the solid waste fund, we saw a 2.1% increase in this division. Next slide. Most of that was related to salaries, pension, again, and FICA benefits costs, as we did as well in this division, create a career path and filling of vacancies. We increased dumpster repairs. This was due to the condition of our existing inventory. They're steel metal containers, and they do take a beating over the years, so we have some dumpsters that need to be replaced, so we're increasing that budget. We increased the credit card merchant fees to cover our online payment process. We've seen that as a success as well. And then transfer to the vehicle replacement fund due to mechanical failures. We've had some major failures this year that has increased our cost a little bit. Again, some of the successes, we've implemented the mandatory service charge program in connection and in cooperation with the Community Standards Department. We were seeing a lot of progress in cleaning up the city, and then COVID hit, in which we kind of relaxed that program a little bit. But as of June 1st, we've reinstituted that, and we're starting to see some cleanup happening again. Implementation of the career path for the solid waste equipment operators. Some of the challenge we have is some of our older equipment breaking down. We had some serious mechanical failures. As you can see over the last 3 weeks, we've had very difficult time making some of the routes, completing some of the routes. We've had some serious breakdowns. We're working on that. And then solid waste operations, as you know, is one of the top 5 riskiest professions in the U.S. That's definitely a challenge that we see every day. And then prevention of accidents and employee injuries. Again, this is something that's a challenge to this division. Some of the initiatives that we have going forward is we're waiting for the delivery of a new 60/40 rear load garbage truck. This will help with our commercial and multifamily recycling process. This will allow us to run the route once instead of running it twice, where we use a rear load truck now. We have to circle back. We'll be able to collect both recycling carts at one time. So this will help us streamline that. And then we're also looking to implement a solid waste safety and operational manual. That's currently unprocessed. We may have to collect a bargain that, but we're working on that as well. Next slide. And then this is the last division that we created this year. This is the first time we're having a parking services division. This new division has a new expenditure of $266,000. Next slide. And just a little bit of information on that. You're looking at the proposed revenue for this division. So we're looking at taking the daily parking fees from $320,000 to $680,000. We're going to be issuing parking citations as well. And then we're showing us no increase for the parking permits. This is revenue associated with the parking permits. Next slide. So a part of this new division was created in the Public Works Division to oversee and manage the automated parking system and enforcement. This division will promote efficiency and easy to use parking system to help improve customer service and the quality of life. Automated parking meter improvements will also control operating costs and generate sufficient revenue to support the automated parking system and the infrastructure. So the next steps to this division, as you know, at our next commission meeting, we'll have the actual first reading of the parking meter ordinance. This is an amendment to the existing ordinances to allow for the parking meters. When then it'll be second reading is scheduled for August 4th. And then as a part of that ordinance reading, we'll have a resolution that's created in the ordinance is to the fee schedule for the resolution. That'll be on August 4th. And then we've already had our project. As you know, we awarded to Park Mobile. We've had our kickoff meeting on June 25th. We started our weekly meetings with the vendor to implement. And right now we're looking at our go live date of October 1st, 2020. And with that, I think it's the last slide. Any questions?
Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner Romulus.
Thank you. Andrew, thank you for that presentation. My only question to you is I noticed you didn't account for any revenue from the parking meters. Why not? Or did you and I missed it?
Yeah, we did. So the daily parking fees, that's where are actually the meters. So as we transition what we currently do, which is paid parking attendance, we'll go to the meters. So our daily parking fees are increasing, and that's due to the actual automation and then collecting of the fees throughout the full day. So those meters are set every. It was 320. Sorry, go ahead.
No, saying which slide was it that was included in?
It was on the second slide. It was a parking revenue slide. or proposed revenue for the parking division.
Right.
So it went from 320,000 to 680, and that's
Okay, so
attributed
is
to
that
the
where
new.
that's being included?
I'm sorry, I'm getting the echo. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just saying, so that's where that's being accounted for?
Correct, exactly.
Okay, thank you. That's what I needed. And then my second question is just, I had a brief conversation with Colin, and it was in terms of the constant employee turnover that we're having. Not turnover, but maybe right now, especially with COVID and people being out and causing for us to have delays in routes because people are potentially, not healthy enough to be out there. Have you guys had a conversation about potentially having an on-call pool and maybe having trained people who maybe would just be available that way as we, employees, if they're sick or something, we have other people on backup in order to prevent the route from falling behind?
Yeah, that's a great idea. We did this year, we actually had temp employees, but they were not CDL drivers. They were more labor than they were drivers. That is something that Colin did mention it to me, and I think that's a great idea. Being that if we could have an on-call temp pool of CDL drivers, that because one of the hard things is, we could outsource some of that, but most drivers are already earning an income. So, but we looking for those, like you mentioned, I think was a retired driver or somebody that could come back that's retired that maybe would be a temporary employee. We're looking to have that as well. And just so you know, I mean, we have been impacted by COVID. Some of our in the fleet division, we've had some issues with some of the truck mechanics that have been out, as well as some of our drivers. And then, as you know, we've had some just staff out just to injuries as well.
Okay, well, I'd like to hear some feedback once you explore that and see if that's a possibility.
Yeah, I definitely, as soon as I get with HR, we'll give you an update.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Hay.
Andrew, the great presentation as the others, but I've received several calls about the maintenance of our grave site down there on the Woodbright and Seacrest. Is that a budget problem where we don't have enough employees, or just we as a city need to do a better job in terms of?
I think that's a little bit of both. I think, one of the things that we can do is, and again, one of my initiatives is to update the policies and procedures. One of the issues I think that we've allowed a lot of people to put out mementos and monuments and things around the grave sites, which definitely slows down the maintenance around the grave sites. That is something that I'm going to bring back to the commission as an update to get your guys' feedback on what we should and shouldn't allow. This is, it's a very tough subject as somebody's grieving for lost a loved one, and they may not be able to put something out, but at the same time, we have to respect the graves of the others. So it's a real balancing act. Alex has done a tremendous job at this point. He's our cemetery sexton. He has done a great job balancing that, but there are times when we fall behind on maintenance. It's a constant rotation. As soon as they start at one end, they can just go back to the beginning, rotating the trimming of the headstones and the maintenance. There are some capital needs there as well. Some of the irrigation system, I think in the future we have programmed for a replacement of the irrigation system will help. And then we have some new equipment coming in as well. So that is definitely an area that we are looking to improve. We did improve the entry feature. Matt Doyle, our landscape architect, worked with him and our vendor to improve the entrance as we come in, and actually removed the flagpole. So one other thing that was an issue we've had is as we were going to, obviously we were out of spaces, so we've expanded the cemetery by removing roads. And as we remove those roads, we were leaving it as dirt. So now when we take out a road, we're doing the whole road and then sodding it right away. So that has caused some issues in the cemetery as well, where people think that it's a neglected area, but it's actually an area that's being expanding in the cemetery.
Very good, Andrew. Thank you.
Any other questions for Public Works?
All right, John, you want to go to the next slide? I believe it's Capital Improvement Fund.
Okay. I believe there was a new one that was submitted. I haven't had a chance to pull that up because give me a second.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Next slide. So one of the things I always like to start off with, obviously, we have the penny sales tax, which has been a very positive thing for the city, paying for some deferred maintenance costs that we've had over the last 10 years. That will sunset in December 2026. So as we're currently doing these projects, we're still looking for future funding to make sure that we maintain a robust capital fund as well. So currently, this next fiscal year, we have $9,380,000 projected in the 303, which is the penny sales tax fund, as well. That equates to 60 projects roughly. In our 302, which is our general fund CIP capital program, we have 2.8 million funded, and that equates to 10 projects. Next slide. Okay, what I gave you here is a summary sheet by division. You have general government projects for next fiscal year, roughly $1 million. General HVAC is $10,000. Roofing repairs is $235,000. Parks and recreation projects are $3.3 million. Public safety projects are $1.2 million. And information technology projects are $200,000, and then transportation roadway is $3.2 million. And I'll go into a little bit more detail. And that's the next fiscal year plan. These are some of the highlighted projects. Boynton Beach Extension. This project is currently budgeted this fiscal year. It's rolling over as it'll probably start later on in this fiscal year. We have $1.26 million budget as a combined project with the CRA. That project includes the demolition of existing planters, landscaping, sidewalk, new landscape island and sidewalk, new additional street parking, new walkway lighting, landscape and irrigation, and security upgrades. Next slide. General government repairs. This is our catch-all area when we have projects that arise throughout the fiscal year. We had $20,000 allocated for painting, $25,000 for roof repairs, $20,000 for fencing, $15,000 for electrical, and $25,000 for miscellaneous. Next slide. Public Works roof replacement. We have $235,000 budgeted next year for the replacement of the Public Works admin office, the heavy-duty fleet shop, and the warehouse. This roof on this building is pretty significantly old. It needs to be replaced. We've actually had some leaks in the warehouse that we've had to deal with. So that's something that needs to happen relatively quickly next year. Congress Avenue barrier-free projects. We have $150,000 for removal and replacement of the existing play surface, $60,000 for the replacement or enhancement of the splash pad, $20,000 for removal and replacement of some ADA enhancements, and then $60,000 for removal and replacement of the existing bioswale. Next slide. Isel Hester Center. This is probably one of our biggest projects coming up in the next fiscal year. We have $1.5 million. This will roll over 2 fiscal years. We want $1.5 million in next fiscal year, and then roughly $1.5 in the following fiscal year. The major highlights of that will be new visitor parking next to the football field and overflow parking, upgraded replacement of the existing football field with turf, irrigation, fencing, and goalposts. We're doing an expansion widening of the multi-purpose field to accommodate soccer and flag, football, and rugby on the field, walkway lighting, security cameras, and the emergency phones. Next slide. Little League Park. one of the projects that we have for next fiscal year is $175,000 for the replacement of the existing ball field fencing. That ball field fencing is in pretty bad shape. We did do some Band-Aid repairs this year to get them by, but next year we need to do a holistic upgrade of that fencing. Mangrove Park project. This is our old park that was on the diocese land. We have $500,000 budgeted for potentially for the removal and salvage of the site improvements that are located on the church property. We're still in the permitting process of that, so I don't know when that's going to happen, but that's scheduled for next fiscal year possibly. Next slide. Oceanfront Park projects. We have $80,000 for the repair and replacement of the ramp at the beach connection. I don't know if you know, but our in-house staff, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, went in and did a replacement in-house. It was done out of wood, so now we're looking to do a more permanent repair that's scheduled for next year, and then $30,000 for repair to the maintenance road over the dune. Also, as a part of that next fiscal year, we have Oyer Park. We have $150,000 for the installation of a 8-foot concrete wall along the north property line, and $35,000 for the installation of security cameras. Oyer Park, we had a lot of noise and stuff out with the boats and people coming off their boats, so the adjacent neighborhood has asked for the installation of a new wall and some security, so that's what's driven that project next fiscal year. I mean, next slide. Pence Park projects. As you know, we did our preliminary design this fiscal year, and we got a lot of positive feedback on the preliminary design from the Rec and Parks Board. So now we're moving that into the final design so that we can look at either potentially phasing or plan for the next upcoming fiscal years on when we're going to do a replacement of that park. And Pence Park is one of the oldest parks in the city, so we're excited to get some money into that budget to renovate that project, or that park. Tennis Center project. As you know, we have a tennis center out on Congress Avenue. The clay courts need to be retooled and replaced. We have funding for that project that was $115,000 for next fiscal year. Next slide. Public safety project. As Chief Carter mentioned, we have $52,000 slated for the vehicle exhaust system at Fire Station 2. Also, as we mentioned, $100,000 for the design of the new fire station on the existing site. This will get us to 30% drawings. You know, as we're going through that, we're also still evaluating whether or not that building could be rehabbed. That's something that we are looking at. But we also are in the interim are submitting for some DEO grants. Those are something that came through the end of this fiscal year. So we're hoping that we can get an award that'll help with the funding of the new station. $52,000 also for Fire Station 4 vehicle exhaust system. $400,000 for the completion of the real-time crime center, and Chief Gregory could talk to that if you had any additional questions. And then you have $225,000 for upgraded the replacement of the PD network facilities, and $75,000 for upgrade to access control existing facilities. Next slide. Information technology projects. As I mentioned in my presentation for Public Works, we have $125,000 in the CIP for taking enterprise-wide the payroll and timekeeping software. This will be all general employees, and then possibly tying in the police department and fire department to automate their payroll right into the finance module. And then also we fund $65,000 for PC and laptop replacements citywide. Next slide. Transportation project. $250,000 for sidewalk repairs and replacements, $100,000 for sidewalk and ADA ramp upgrades, $100,000 for High Ridge Road improvement design. And what we're doing there is the existing road on High Ridge from just south of Gateway to Minor Road. This is an improvement of that section of road to increase traffic and rebuild the road and drainage. We have $350,000 for the installation of drainage and road repair on Industrial Way. We have some significant potholing on that road. Right there where Waste Management is, we have some very large trucks that go down that road. So we are working towards rebuilding that road next fiscal year. And then we have $2.2 million for asphalt repairs and road resurfacing. And next slide. So as I mentioned, our engineering division did a great job in creating a 5-year plan, and I'm excited to show you this in a future upcoming meeting. But just to give you a little taste, what we did is we automated all of our plan into GIS so that we can tell you the age, all with a snapshot and dashboards, what the grade, all the roads were graded from an A to an F. And then we went through and created that plan based on funding and current costs. So what you're looking at right now is one section that's scheduled for next year. This is, as you can see, you have the commission districts here on the left and the colors, and then you see the yellow roads are what's planned to be resurfaced next fiscal year. This is just one section of it. As you can see, a lot of the District 2 roads are scheduled in this area. Next slide. Another shot, you see you have a little bit of a carryover here. Again, you're showing area here that's a little bit over District 3 and District 2. This is west of I-95, south of Boynton Beach Boulevard. And then you have southwest 14th Place. So we try to do is where we're in the neighborhood where the most F roads or D roads are, we try to concentrate in those areas to complete the road resurfacing. Next slide. And as you can see, I did a small pie chart so you can see by district. Right now, we don't have any improvements in District 4 for road resurfacing, but most of that's related to that we have a lot of private communities in District 4. So majority of our publicly owned roads are in District 2, and you can see that equates to next fiscal year's budget. 64% of our money for resurfacing is in District 2 next year. And then after that is District 3 and District 2. Next slide. The 302 fund, this is our general fund. Next year in general government projects, we have 33,000. Recreation projects, 610,000. Public safety projects, 421,000. IT projects, 156,000. Transportation, 1.2 million. And golf course projects, 375,000. Next slide. Some of our major projects is the Oyer Park boat ramp. This project is 1.25 million for the replacement of the boat ramp and the docks. We're seeking currently 500,000 in grant funding from the Florida Inland Navigation Department. We actually have our application rankings this Friday to see where we fall on that. They won't actually announce it, but they'll do the actual ranking that day. So we're hoping that we get that money so that we can complete the renovation of the boat ramp. Southeast First Street redesign. This is our TPA grant. It's called for the scheduled for the design of that road. This is from Ocean Avenue South to Woolbright to redesign that road to a complete street. We have 250,000 for the final design and the construction documents. Next slide. Gulfstream Boulevard redesign. We have 500,000 program for next year for the redesign of Gulfstream Boulevard from Seacrest to Old Dixie Highway. We have an interlocal agreement with City of Delray to reimburse us up to $250 for the completion of the redesign. And that's the highlight of the 302. If you have any particular questions, I'm open to answer those for you. Thank you. I know I went quick, but
no worries. Yeah, sure. Hey, looks like again. Yes.
Okay. One question. We're talking about COVID-19 and kids having more laptops and all that kind of stuff. Are we looking at putting anything in the budget for increasing the number of hotspots that we have around the city? Are we giving that any consideration at this point?
Yes. So as a part of Town Square, we will have Wi-Fi in the common areas out in the parks, and as well at Sarah Sims Park, we're currently working with Verizon right now to deploy Wi-Fi hotspots in that whole park. That's where we currently land. Right now, I don't have any additional. We do have some general fund money that we could program to that as we go throughout the year.
And we also check out free of charge from our city library, and I think Craig is looking at increasing his inventory of the devices that you can utilize as per hotspot and doesn't cost the resident money, right? Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
So Andrew, I got a few questions.
Sure.
One of them is regarding buffered or protected bicycle lanes. Do we have that, regarding any of the upgraded roads that we're doing?
Most of as far as our resurfacing is all on local streets, so we don't have buffered like bike lanes on those streets. But as
Okay.
a part of the grants on Boynton Beach Boulevard and Southeast First Street, they won't be buffered, but they will be designated bike lanes.
All right, and so, okay. The next question is we heard comments regarding trees and the canopy, the tree canopy in the city. Do we have money in the budget for that as well?
Yeah, excellent question. I know that's something that came about after we submitted our budgets. As you know, budgets for us starts in January and we submit in April. So unfortunately, by the time we had submitted the budgets, we have not budgeted for the canopy. That is something that I have spoken to the city manager and Rebecca Harvey. We're working on possibility of either freeing up money in somewhere else or adding something at the end of the budget year that will be heard to you at your September meeting for adoption. So that's something that we're currently working on to get back to. I believe Rebecca is working on an agenda item that will detail out what we're looking at funding wise, and then we would amend the budget accordingly.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm looking so that the city has it in the budget. I guess we'll hopefully get Rebecca's presentation on that because I spoke with Community Greening this morning, and they said one of the reasons why we lost the $50,000 grant from Community Foundation is that they weren't aware of the city putting money in for the urban canopy. I know that the city's helped a lot with the irrigation, but I think we really need to help more with the trees. And then the last question that I had is a couple of the roads that you were looking to redo. Ocean Parkway, that is a median with trees. Are we planning on redoing the median as well with irrigation?
Right now, I'd have to check with the engineering division. I don't believe there's irrigation slated. It's just a resurfacing project, but that's something that we can add or look to add.
The next question is Ocean Drive from Southwest 8th Street to the luxury store all. Are we going to do anything about that hairpin turn around? I think it's on Southwest 7th Street, so that it makes it easier for trucks to get over heading on Ocean Drive.
I know that recently we did do some improvements with the roundabout in that area with some striping to help alleviate some of the turning movements in that intersection. So I'd have to go back out and look at it to see if there's still a problem. But I know that we've made some improvements there, as well as we're already scheduled to do some work at Hibiscus Park to put in some fencing and some sidewalks there as well.
Okay. And then my last question is regarding, is there anything in the future capital improvement plan for Northeast First Street?
Right now, I don't have anything because with all the work that's going on for Ocean Breeze East and the potential for the projects in that area, that's something as we get further down into it, we'll look at probably not this fiscal year, but the following fiscal year, resurfacing that road. We wanted to let the road work get done and the projects get done. And I do believe that Utilities has a project in that area, so we probably will piggyback onto their project and add resurfacing to that street.
We also, Mayor, want to talk to the CRA about partnering on that project.
Okay. All right, that's it for my questions. Anything else from the commission?
One last question, Mayor. The area over in Sky Lake, I noticed you had, I think you said $250,000 for sidewalk repairs. Do you know whether or not you have Sky Lake in mind there, or that, have you had opportunity to lay it all out?
So sidewalk repairs are a little harder to determine location. We do it based on a criteria where we go out and evaluate and look at what the the severity of the issue, and then we prioritize based on the severity. So those are something that we try and get, and we're in a whole neighborhood. We try to take care of the whole neighborhood at that time. So I don't have anything programmed for Skylake at this second, but we will do some repairs because we're doing the asphalt in that area as well. Because as you noted, yes.
Right.
So it may not be all the sidewalks, but it'll be a majority of the trip hazards that are presented out there.
At least the bad ones.
Yes, correct. Yes, correct.
Thank you.
All right, hearing nothing else from the city commission, what is the next fund that we're talking about?
Well, we have what we didn't prepare presentations on, but we have our numerous smaller departments, HR, risk, clerk and all that. I don't know if anybody had any questions on any of those. We're prepared to answer any questions. And then our other funds, if not, we're ready to go to utilities if you would like to do that.
I'd like to ask about Parks and Recreation.
Okay, and we have Casey's available as well.
Yeah, what are we doing now where we have definitely a huge decrease in the funding? And what do we plan on doing in the spring, or I'm sorry, in the fall, with the announcement that the school district is not opening classes, or is the school will be virtual?
Evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Casey Young, Recreation and Parks Assistant Director. So, with COVID and with the announcement of school district possibly not being on site or conducting school virtually in the fall, we are prepared to look into doing programming virtually ourselves. Again, it's just a lot of unknowns out there as far as doing programming on site, but we are reviewing safety protocols with some of our contractor instructors, and also staff has been researching and looking into how we can safely conduct programs in the fall. So that's kind of what our plan is right now as far as moving forward.
Yeah, and the operating budget is up, actually. It's not down. We were up about a little over 100,000. A lot of it's going to be a wait and see on what we, how much we can offer from a virtual standpoint.
And does the commission have any other questions regarding any other budget item? Not hearing anything. So.
Would you like to move on to utilities, Mayor?
So yeah, it's around, was it almost 7:10? Are we expecting to get through the whole budget workshop today?
We absolutely can. I don't think utilities will take more than 15-20 minutes, and then we have public comment after that to wrap it up, and then just talk a little bit about meetings, special meeting dates, and yes, I think we absolutely can.
All right, perfect. So let's hear utility.
Okay, just a second. I'll load that presentation up.
Yeah, that's the new one, John, that you just got. Yes.
Joe Paterniti, I believe you are self-muted.
All right, here I am.
Yep.
I see the last slide on the screen here, John. Can you go to the beginning?
Yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It was a quick presentation.
Yep.
Well, good evening, Commission. Joe Paterniti, Utility Director. I have probably a dozen slides to go through real quick with you. Please stop me if you have any questions or want to make a comment. Next slide. Here is a summary of the utilities budget changes in each of the 13 accounting divisions. It shows a total proposed budget of $52,225,066, which is a net budget increase of 2.5%. The 1.2 million increase is primarily due to the addition of a 1 million allocation to the utilities renewal and replacement fund to keep all our maintenance program running. properly. Next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed revenue, the funds needed to balance the utility budget. We have a revenue projection of 51 million. We are making it up with the fund balance transfer of 689,000. Next slide, please. As you know, this slide shows the four components of the utility budget. The operating budget of 35,632,457. The renewal and replacement budget of 800 million. Excuse me, 8 million. Sorry. Let's see. The intergovernment transfers of 8.5 million, with a total of totaling 52 million. Our capital improvement is 17,926,000, and that's for capacity increases and infrastructure upgrades. Oh, successes. Completion of one of our successes is the completion of the district energy chilled water facility. We have a new interlocal agreement with Hypoluxo and a service agreement with Perry Village, which added 700 utility customers. Staff has completed numerous stormwater management improvements, and we continue to refine our utility rate model and upgrading our GIS system. Some of our challenges is to continue to look for new staff. Some of our initiatives, staff is beginning to replace the radio communication system with a faster, more secure cellular system. In addition, staff is continuing to implement the asset management work order system to include wells, lift stations, and remote water storage facilities. Next slide, please. Utility staff has identified capital needs over a 20-year period based on system capacity, infrastructure conditions, and regulatory requirements. These are some of the highlights of the major projects for our capital budget. We're planning on replacing the water treatment membranes at our West Water Treatment Facility. We're upgrading lift station 317 on Boynton Beach Boulevard. It's reaching its capacity. We need some capacity improvements on that facility. We're improving force main improvements in the Silverwood to service our collection of wastewater in the Northwest service area. Utility acquisition costs were budgeted for $2 million. We're building a new lab. We've allocated $400,000 for that, and we have a contractor on board and an engineer. Then we're expanding our reuse distribution system, and we budgeted $2 million for that. So this is a total of a $17.9 million capital budget. The utility rate model allows staff to make adjustments to the timing of each of these projects and calculates the resulting budget impacts. All right, the utility utilizes these published indices, consumer price index, wage and salary, and energy indices in the rate model. They represent the cost change value over the past 12 months. The rate model utilizes these values to escalate or decrease the utility operating costs. The utility rate model allows staff to project costs and ensure utility rates remain stable and are able to sustain the utility for years. Next slide. Based on our analysis, the utility is proposing to hold rate levels for water, wastewater, and chilled water with a 2 cent per 1,000 gallon rise in the reuse and 50-cent increase in the stormwater fee. Next slide. Thank you. This table shows the increase in the stormwater and reclaimed water and holding the DES chilled water rates constant, and also shows the projection over the next 3 years. This is a typical.
Quick question. Do you have a breakdown of those total revenues based upon the costs?
We do have, I don't have it in my presentation.
Okay.
We do break down each category. We have probably about over a dozen rate categories or rate revenue categories that we have rates for, and I can get you that information, Mayor.
Yeah, so it's similar to the slide we're missing for the millage rate. Is that if the stormwater is $6.50 versus $7, what would that expect to bring in for the total amount?
I don't have that comparison in this slide, this presentation.
I just want to let you know what I'm looking for.
Okay, got it. Thank
We
you.
can send that to you tomorrow, Mayor, and I meant, Joe, I'm sorry. Just all these presentations, we're going to get out to the commission tomorrow. They were literally being finalized till 4:49 tonight. So that's why you don't have them yet, but we'll get them out to you tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you, Lori. This slide shows the change in customer bills with the rate increase. Basically, the outside city rates are holding steady, and the inside city bills reflect a 50 cents per ERU increase in the stormwater fee. So this is what the typical bills would rang for a single family inside city, 3,000 gallons. It's only going up, less than $1. Next slide. Well, the next steps are to consider approval of the proposed utility budget and to allow staff to publish the proposed rates and to notify customers of the upcoming rate approval commission meeting in September. And that's the end of my presentation.
And so one of the things that I'd like to propose to the city commission is that we have a voluntary sustainability charge on the water utility bill that people can opt into. This is something that I know that might not be done this year, but I'd like to have the research done for at least next year. Currently, FPL has shown its works with its Solar Now program, and that's why Boynton Beach has the solar canopies over at our oceanfront park and our barrier-free park. With the water utility, we have, is the department that has our sustainability coordinator. So I believe they do have the staff to help with this. The goal is for the twofold of one, increasing trees in the city of Boynton Beach to help with the stormwater maintenance, because as you see, that was the biggest increase that we've had this past year, and trees do help with stormwater maintenance. And the second thing is the electricity. And so, Colin, it seems like you have a question or comment.
No, I was going to comment on that. Yeah, that's since the question came up earlier about the tree and the tree canopy, we are going to look at all of these different types of sources, and that could be one of them is a voluntary fee. We will back to you. We're ready to bring all this stuff back to you for review. When we bring back the tree program, it'll come back with some funding options.
And so I kind of want to hear from the commission to see if that's something that they want to direct staff to move forward with before staff does any legwork regarding that. So,
Mayor, could
yes.
you clarify the request? It's research that you're looking for, that information be brought back to us, what that's going to look like. Is that the request?
Correct. The aspect of giving our water utility customers the ability to help with sustainability for our water utility. And so this is a voluntary program where you don't get anything written off your tax or anything like that. It's just saying, hey, I'm making a small donation to the city so that money will absolutely be used for either sustainable energy or tree canopy.
I definitely am open to exploring this, so yes.
Okay.
And do I have another commissioner that agrees?
I do.
Sure.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, so just want to make sure that we're giving staff the correct direction. Is there any other questions for the water utility?
Yes. Joe, I think you mentioned something that you had $3 million in the replacement of the membranes.
Yes.
I guess it's just education on my part. How long, what's the lifespan of those membranes? Because I took a tour out there and, I had no idea they're needing replaced, but what's the lifespan of those?
Typically, it's 10 years, Commissioner. Those membranes have been in for about 15 now, and they're at the end of their useful life, so we need to get those replaced.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
All right. Hearing no more questions or comments from the City Commission, we'll reopen it up. Public comments. I don't know if anyone raised their hand in the meantime, but I do believe someone from the audience had a question regarding one of our funds. So we'll move on to the second public comments before we adopt the millage rate.
Hello, my name is Daryl Sanders. My address is 2001 Northwest 2nd Street. My question is for the chief, the police chief. I see like a lot of budget is put into after the fact, like after the crime is committed, or a ticket, or cameras, but there's no budget for crime prevention, like before the crime is committed. So I think that the police can put a budget into something like police youth camps for kids, or parents that want to get their kids at a young age into like police work or fire department work. That way, you know, we can kind of interact with these kids from a younger age and catch them before they become criminals or anything else. You know, you put money into programs that kind of, I don't know if befriending the word, but kind of make the citizens and the kids more police friendly. That way they grow up, they'll apply for jobs, want to be police officers, and as they're growing up, if they have a relationship with these police officers, they'll feel more reluctant to commit crimes or letting down their police friends. You know, they're officers that they look up to. For example, like Tommy Newman, we need like a Tommy Newman program where it's real neighborhood policing, where he actually goes out and actually interacts with the neighborhood. It's not just a program, just the name of the program. Like you can actually see this guy out here interacting. So I think more budget needs to be put probably into like a Segway program or officers or
date of the first public hearing.
Control the neighborhood and interact with people instead of being so distant and just speeding up the block in their cars, and then they come and have this negative connotation towards you when they
will have to amend the resolution.
Know you at all. You know, you're just another person to them. I also think the police budget can be put into the Power League that we had, the Police Athletic League, like Derrick. A lot of their police officers actually coach the football league. Derrick Rocks, and a couple of other teams they have there, their police are actually involved with the sports program, whether it be basketball, football. So there could be an extra fund provided for, an incentive provided for officers that are willing to coach kids, a Power League basketball team or a Power League football team. These are things, like I said, that can reach kids at a younger age before, after the fact, and try to give them a ticket or catch them on camera doing something. Also, like a Big Brother program or a DARE program, something that pays these officers a little extra money for their time to get out and talk to kids about drug prevention. And like we used to have in school, we don't even have that no more. So I think these are programs that a budget can be put into, as opposed to so much technology for after the fact. You know what I'm saying? We need technology for before the fact. Also, like, will they be requiring these officers? Like the mayor mentioned for the city of Boynton, that they have to take a like a diverse ethnicity course as a requirement to get a job for the Boynton Beach Police Department, so that they'll have the opportunity to learn about diverse cultures, how to deal with, for example, Black people. You know, we got bad attitudes. So, you know, hey, if I pull over this Black guy, I know naturally Black people got bad attitudes, so it ain't gonna affect me because I already know, I learned from my course, some Black people got bad attitudes, so they don't have to react so impulsively to somebody they can't relate to. So I think these courses are important that police should take, just how to deal with different mentalities of people, and especially mentally ill people. They need a course to deal with mentally ill people because they don't seem to have the proper training. And it's like, say if a guy with is mentally ill and has a knife, they just want to shoot him. They don't have training to actually calm the situation down and take better action at handling the situation. So I think money into these programs to properly train these officers beforehand, I think that will reduce crime more so than a traffic camera ticket or camera at a park or anything like that. Also, like I was thinking about like police swimming camp. And also I agree with, I'm not sure who said it, but having funding for psychological evaluations for these officers, because a lot of them need psychological evaluations because a lot of officers are like ex-military, and some of them have post-traumatic stress syndrome, but they're out here policing the streets with the same mentality that they're over in Afghanistan or wherever they've been with. So someone needs to analyze these officers before they are hired as well to make sure that they're psychologically stable to be out patrolling the neighborhood and dealing with, criminals and crime. That was pretty much for, oh, and also one last thing, for the police, if they have funds to, be nice if they had funds to allocate to nonprofits that promote nonviolence in the city of Boynton Beach. That they could partner up with nonprofits and also come up with little programs that to prevent crime in Boynton Beach, pretty much. So I would like to focus more of the budget into preventing crime than after the fact of arresting people and trying to solve crime and all that stuff. That doesn't prevent crime, it doesn't reduce your crime rate. Reducing your crime rate is police interaction with the community, and that comes from psychological training and just knowing how to deal with diverse ethnicities of people. And the next one was for the Public Works Department. Okay, just real quick. Public Works, a lot of the budget I see is like for a lot of these new projects and stuff, but I've been living on my street for the last 10 years, and after 20 seconds of a good rainfall, we've been underwater. I've complained for 5 years. We just got two sewer drains put on the street, and they were hoping that it deals with the problem, but I'm in Rolling Green Ridge, and that whole area has a flooding problem from First Street to the middle street and I'm on the back street, which I'm in the bottom of the bowl. So all that water runs down the hill, 19 by the Hester Gym, and it fills that neighborhood back there. And I see you guys talking about fixing High Ridge in the drain, maybe because the police station is there now, when I've been complaining for 10 years about my neighborhood, and ain't nothing done to it yet. Our roads look horrible. The edges of the roads are constantly tearing up because when they come and fix it, it's just some temporary cheap $2 fix where they're putting just a little bit more black stuff against the edge, but it's still a hard edge. So any car that hits it gonna break it off. It's not like a smooth edge that'll go into the, it's like cheap work. And I don't think that they're coming around and inspecting these jobs after they're being done, because they're not properly being done on my block. Also, so I think the infrastructure of the city needs more of the budget than all these new projects y'all putting on top of a bad infrastructure. Like Gateway, the lights blink after 20 seconds of rain every single time. It floods. Seacrest floods. There's a whole lot of flooding and bad roads going on. So I think that's the main focus of fixing the infrastructure of the streets and the electric grid. And then we can add buildings and take away that old rickety post office on Boulevard and make everything look new. Also, the last thing is, I like to see a lot of the budget put into beautifying the city of Boynton Beach. There's nothing being done to beautify our city, bring tourists here, attractions. There are no events. All the money is being sucked from citizens. There's no real outside money from other cities and other places. We don't have anything to bring money into the city. So I think the city needs to put into their budget a couple of events that are multicultural, that will bring funds from everywhere to the city. Like Miami has events, Fort Lauderdale has events, West Palm has events, but there's nothing in our area that will bring outside funds to the budget. I actually tried to have an event at the gym. It was denied. I gave Daryl at least $3,000 to have the event that could have went to the city of Boynton. So It's like we gotta, just do better by beautifying our city. Gary looks nice, they fixing up all the alleyways, all the roads, Atlantic Avenue looks nice. I think we need to join the club and make our city look more, beautiful. That's all I got to say. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and so after public comments, could we hear from the marketing department for the city events? Lori?
Yes, sir.
Tory Orton, 407 Northeast 17th Avenue. I want to talk about Juneteenth. I want to know, like, how do I go about getting that day celebrated in Boynton as a real holiday? And they told me I had to come to my commissioner. So I'm here now, acting my commissioner. District 2. Can we see how we can make Juneteenth a national holiday and being recognized in this city? With the help of y'all, helping out every now and then, but going strong, we'll run it. But with the help of the city, it'll be a big, nice event. And with the help of Chevy D as well. And that's what I really want to talk about. And I want to ask, is the chief on here?
I believe so, yes. You can.
Okay, I want to ask the chief why he hasn't answered the question. Why is the officer program weighed on Federal Highway and the kids can't see the officers anymore? Like, how is that bridging the community together? For you to move and wade over there to what that is, the new plaza. They can't walk across Federal Highway. They walk across Seacrest, walking through the canal, over the railroad tracks, and over Federal Highway, just to get to the neighborhood officer program, where it was once on MLK or at 225 Northwest 12th Avenue, Karen Simpson. I thought it was a great idea to have it there. And they just up and left. They ain't say nothing. They ain't tell us nothing. They just left. They said it's out of their hands. It's out of their hands. They said it's the officers. How do we, like, what do we tell the kids? They look forward to seeing you guys. Deal. Deal being a lot to the community. Jones, Paramore, Rivera. All the people are gone. The Karen Simpson is not being open. Who was the guy who public works, right? I mean, the park guy.
Casey Young.
He's on here. The head park man. The center been closed since the company. It has been closed. It hasn't been open. Every day we see people go in there and spray it down. Who are they spraying it down for? Because the community can't go in there. When they do feed the free lunch out there, they feed it out the back door. You can't walk in there. Can't nobody come in. I'm like, what's going on? Who is Carolyn Center for? Is it for us? When they build Carolyn Center left that for us? I know it's a COVID-19 thing right now. I know we got to, be careful. But like, where do these kids go when there are no school? There's no school. You're going to do the virtual thing, right? You're going to do the virtual thing this year, school. So by 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, kids out the door. They ain't out the door. They ain't got nowhere to go. They got to go in to the store. Look at the people at the store, So I'm just asking, maybe y'all can figure something out. Like Stevie said, we can do some different events with the city of with Michael Gregory, which is Holy Chiefs. But we need our neighborhood program back in our neighborhood immediately. Because since they've been gone, and y'all know as well as I know, there's been a lot of shooting going on in Boynton. A lot. So it was a heck of a lot of shooting yesterday went on in the city of Boynton. A whole lot. 5 minutes worth of shooting. Look at the kids. We got 4 kids got shot in 4 years in District 2. 4. The last 4 years, a child been getting shot up in the neighborhood. Kid. We got to do something about that. As a whole. You know, when he burnt, and then Sherry brought up another idea, like, you know, the nonprofits working with the police. That's a great idea. We work with Deal. You know, we have done things with Deal before, you know, Christmas drive with Deal. Like, in the grips of it. Because we need all the help we can get over it. In this community that we call District 2. Deal. So with that, and I just got me a job. I got me a job at the CMC. I'm working over here on 7 with Centennial. Me and my son got a job. That was a blessed thing. That was a good thing came out of that. And I just hope, man, something can happen. You know, because only chief said he's down 19%. But they shoot, they war every day. So I don't understand where it's down there. I just don't know. I don't know the statistics, what I go. But it's like every other day in Boynton Beach. You know, from Household to Boynton Beach Boulevard, you hear daytime, nighttime, don't make no difference. But it's a bunch of conflict going on. Okay. Thank you.
Susan O'Hare, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I'm sorry, but I have a lot of questions as usual. You probably should have done this over 2 days to break me up. Okay, so I'm starting out with the projects, and I believe that was Andrew Mack. Are we going to be shown a list of projects? It'd be very nice to have paperwork on all of this, because you guys flipped through all the budget part, and I was trying to write it down, and there's no way I could even keep up. So it'd be very nice to actually see all of this on paper for the public, because all of us, the whole 3 of us that are still here, 1 person left, you know, we're all taking notes and you know, we're just scribbling because we're not touching it. You mentioned something about the golf course. I think it's $375,000. What are you doing to the golf course? Or is this the carry over from a couple years ago in the renovation that was being spread out over a couple years? Is this something new being done to the golf course? Because $375,000 is a lot of money. Why are we redoing all this stuff at Barrier Free Park? Seems like a lot of stuff to go bad at the same time. So is it just the natural cycle of replacement? Is there actual problems with things? I was there probably January, February with my little niece playing around, and I didn't see a single thing that looked bad or wrong. She was overwhelmed at how amazing it was. I was overwhelmed how amazing Barrier Free Park was. So I don't know why we're redoing stuff, but at least from my viewpoint, it looked absolutely beautiful. It was an amazing park. I was so impressed. So why are we spending money on this? We are spending $175,000 on the baseball park. How many people are actually playing baseball? I mean, just looking at my perspective over years of teaching, 22 years, I had maybe a handful of kids ever play baseball. And yes, they went on to, you know, go semi-pro or whatever, but the kids I always dealt with, and I worked at Galaxy, and I worked at Forest Park, and I worked at Rolling Green, and these kids all play basketball. Football's even on the way out. And you're talking about spending money on football as a Huster, I believe. Basketball's where the kids are going. Soccer's where the kids are going. That's where the college scholarships are. And the lack of being hurt because the parents are going, I don't want my kid to get a concussion, so they're not going to play football. So what else can they play that will get them a scholarship and get them money when they grow up? So why are we putting money into sports that are dying out? And I guess that will take me to my cemetery question, which is, my understanding is when the guy who left the land for the cemetery left it, it was all supposed to be for the cemetery. And we used over time part of it for the baseball parks, but it's supposed to be cemetery property. And our cemetery is so full that we're taking out all the roads. So when you have a funeral, there's nowhere to park. And maybe we should be expanding. And the schools have, if you look at Forest Park and Galaxy and Rolling Green and Point Siena, well, Point Siena doesn't have the land, but you should be able to find more than enough land and work out an agreement with the school district to put the baseball fields on Forest Park or on Galaxy's land. And then that would free up the baseball fields for the cemetery. Because people are going to die, just like death and taxes are for sure. So we need to be planning. So that was my thoughts on that. Let's see. Thank you, Mayor Grant, for talking about the tree canopy, because that's one less thing for me to talk about. Talking to Police Chief Gregory. I noticed Police Chief Katz made a big deal about when he was looking for policemen, he was always looking for people with degrees. He didn't want an uneducated police force. He wanted a highly educated police force. So why are we shifting back to only requiring 60 credit hours, not even an AA degree? So you have all those police who were hired under Chief Katz, who all have bachelor's degrees, maybe master's degrees. You know, they've taken all the criminology classes, they've taken political science or civics classes. You know, he was quite the civics nut and could tell you everything about the Constitution. Now, why are we regressing down to a less educated police force? And I understand part of it is just logistics to be able to get more people to apply, but I'm sorry, I would think we would be encouraging people to get educated, not discouraging them from being educated. I'm also going to say you have a lot of tag reader money and cameras. Again, there's problems in the neighborhoods, so I certainly hope you're looking at where you're going to be placing these to solve some of the problems. Looking at fire, we need more money for code to come out nights and weekends. I know the big problem in my neighborhood, and I see it in all the neighborhoods as I drive around our city, is, you know, multiple cars. You all passed an ordinance that you can't have more cars than bedrooms, and yet the house across the street from me has 3 bedrooms and 8 cars all the time. Yeah, I know. And code is great. Adam is a godsend. I email him every weekend all the time about, you know, trucks at semis at Walmart, whatever. He's great about sending people out. But if you were just randomly sending people, more code enforcement officers out, then it's less of a, oh, she's calling and complaining about me, so the neighbor hates me for calling and complaining, even though they're blatantly, you know, breaking the law. So I'm going to say you need more people in code. Okay, this gets me to Public Works. So Andrew, I have complained a couple times now to Colin about the trees over in the new town square. You have a palm that is approximately 1 to 2 feet away from the old high school. And I've emailed Colin like 3 times on this. It's still there, and the sooner you move it, the better off you're going to be. Which also gets me to the, why are we putting more palms in the city when we're about to get rid of palms, and we should be doing canopy trees. So let's see. When are we going to tackle the multifamily mandatory recycling? We have recycling for all the single family homes in the city, but you all have put in an obscene amount of rentals throughout our city over the last 5 years. We have an abundance of rental, and none of them have mandatory recycling. So when are we going to do something about that and put it in code? And let's see. I think that's all my questions. I'll be fighting the parking meter fight at a later point, Andrew, so you can expect that to come out of me. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And so I believe Ramona Young, you had your hand raised. And I clicked on it, so that means your hand wasn't raised. I don't know if you still want to speak. Yep.
Yes,
Please state your name and address for the record.
Ramona Young, 101 South Federal Highway, Boynton, 33435. I would like there be consideration in the recruiting of police officers, that there be a requirement that they relocate or live in Boynton within 6 to 12 months of their hiring. I think if we're going to be good neighbors, the police officers should live in the city. In the past, historically, in other states and cities, police officers were required to live in the town that they were policing. I think you establish a relationship with your neighbors. We have, where I live, there are several police officers that live here. They know us by name. It's good community relations. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And John McNally, do you see anybody with their hand raised or asking a question?
Mayor Grant, no, I do not.
All right, so we're gonna close public comments and I'll speak with the city commission. Do we want some of the staff to address some of the concerns? I think with Police Chief Andrew Mack of the public.
Mayor, I believe that would be necessary, especially if we're not going to have a secondary meeting tomorrow. It would be wise to have staff address some of the issues that were addressed by members of the community.
So I'll ask Chief Gregory if he would like to begin, followed by Andrew Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael Gregory, Police Chief. I did make some cryptic notes as I heard some of the comments going on, and I'll just touch on them in the order in which I scribbled them down feverishly. There was some discussion from one of the speakers regarding a focus on crime prevention as opposed to almost the traditional policing, patrolling, and technology. And I'll say that I agree with that. I agree that it isn't, we can't put all our eggs in one tactical approach. It has to be a blending of all of that. Community policing, as I touched on earlier in my comments, is a big part of what I believe is a necessary strategy in policing today. I doubled down, I recommitted to that, and I'm committing to expanding that as a philosophy throughout the entire earlier. And I mentioned also that as a part of component of community policing was partnerships. And I didn't go into a lot of detail on that in the efforts of trying to save time, but because it's come back up again, I'll describe a little bit about what that partnership looks like. So for the community's sake, that partnership includes our Explorer program. That's a program that we have with high school students that volunteer to be partnering with us and our Explorers. They meet with us weekly and we mentor them. We discuss life as well as a path towards considering a criminal justice career, whether it be police officer or a paraprofessional police staff member, or some other sort of career in law for that matter, anything else. We try to mentor them, encourage them, and build a relationship with them so they get to know who we are and who they are on a personal level, and that relationship there. In addition to that, we sponsor a teen police academy each summer. That's been going on for several years, been very successful. We typically have, I believe, over 30 students each summer that participates in that program. Last year, we did our first Teen Summit, which is for students who didn't necessarily have the ability or means to participate in traditional summer camps, that we would sponsor and host our own short version of a summer camp for those students, so that we could, again, get them exposed to officers, meet officers face to face, get to hear some of their stories, and mentor those young students who otherwise might just be hanging out as opposed to being in a structured environment. So we tried to create that for them last summer as well. A number of these programs, obviously this year, don't look the same. We haven't been able to hold them because of what we're in the middle of with COVID, and it's sad, but it's in the interest of public safety, public health, that we aren't trying to host events and bring the students together for those type of social interactions. I am excited about another endeavor because, again, I mentioned before, I'm big on community policing, big on these partnerships, engagement with our community members. I've met with Dr. Lockhart from Boynton Beach High School, and he and I are very much on the same page with trying to create a program at Boynton Beach High that the police department can engage even further with the high school students there. We're looking at, as the school year starts, in some form or fashion, on video or in person, whatever that might be, we're looking to have some time with the students. Our officers spend some time with the students virtually if need be, to discuss hot topics that are going on in the news today and what it's like as a police officer encountering folks in the community, as well as have some conversations about as students prepare to get their driver's license and start driving, what the responsibilities of having a driver's license are, what can they expect if they get stopped for a traffic violation, all with the sense of educating them, as well as building that one-on-one relationship between a real police officer and students who have questions about what are the police doing and why are they doing this to us. So again, I'm very committed to that. I share that. That's all. I wrap all that up under that umbrella of prevention, because I think it does help to prevent people going off track or going astray or going down the wrong path. And every extra little bit we can do there takes us that much further towards reducing crime and building a strong, healthy community in Boynton Beach. There was some discussion about the benefits of the PAL program. And while I'm not an anti-PAL program, I understand we had a PAL program here historically in Boynton Beach. When I got here, it was no longer the case. But what happened here, as I understand it, was that private community groups stood up in 501c3s and filled that gap. So we partner with those groups. The first being one of them being the Bill Tomei Foundation, who sponsor as the mayor's he's gone out and visited with them several times, as we have, a basketball league, after school basketball league that was running over at Ezel Hester, as well as the Boynton Beach Bulldogs football team. So we partner with both of those. In fact, one of our captains is a coach with the basketball after school, working with those students, mentoring when they're receptive to that, and being that role model and being present so they can have a conversation that's not controversial, not adversarial with police officers, but can break down everyday topics that come across these students' minds. We are there to be that sounding board and being able to discuss them with them from a police perspective. So we don't try to, I'm not trying to put either of those programs out of business by starting up our own thing and competing with them. As far as I understand, they have a great reputation in the community. They are well attended, and we look to support both the Bill Tomei Foundation and its basketball league and the Boynton Beach Bulldogs football team. And others that might come up in that gap for those students who don't play basketball or football, or I think there's also a cheerleading element to the Bulldogs group. If there's others that pop up, we're more than open to working with those private foundations and 501c3s as well. There was some discussion about the neighborhood officer program and why we moved it and got rid of it and out of the MLK and Cherry Hill area. And that's news to me. As far as I see the neighborhood officer program, it is not a building. It is a group of officers who go to the students and to the young people in the community and engage with them. And to that end, Our officers that have been a part of that program have continued to be at Carolyn Sims, have continued to engage students in the community where they are and not requiring them to come to us. We did have the opportunity to get some very good office space at a very economical advantage for the city. So we have an office that they can work out of over on Federal Highway, but that's not where we look to run the program from. That office is also shared by our crime prevention officers. It's a place for them to land, make phone calls, do follow-ups, take care of those business matters or do police reports if they need to. But our model of policing doesn't happen from inside the building. It happens in the community, and that's where we have the officers, Paramore, Rivera, Sergeant Deal. I fully expect and see them often out in the community in the neighborhoods. What may be experienced or perception may be there is because under COVID, the schools closed. So if the schools are closed, the officers aren't there. If we've closed the Carolyn Sims Center because of social distancing needs, that's why they're not there. Not because we've taken them out of the Carolyn Sims Center or out of the neighborhoods or out of the schools. It's just that the schools are closed, the parks are closed, and the places that we typically meet students aren't open right now. When they are open and it is safe to be around each other again socially like that, that's exactly where they're going to be. We have no intention of taking them out of our neighborhoods where they're needed the most. Some comments were made about training and making sure officers understand the needs of diversity in our community, a multicultural city. We do that. I mentioned one of those programs earlier, and as part of our initiatives for this upcoming years to expand what we're already doing. I mentioned the fair and impartial policing program, I should say training program. That is has already been done in Boynton once before, and we're looking to do it again. I believe it should be repeated periodically every 2 to 3 years. Come back and revisit that topic with the officers, that particular program, as well as the procedural justice program, which talks about fairness and your interactions with the public and transparency in your interactions and giving people the opportunity to explain their situations and not just have the officer do all the talking. It leaves a bad taste in folks' mouths. But those are training programs that we have that talk about how to police today in a multicultural society. And then not to mention the crisis intervention program, training program, which is frequently referred to as CIT training. We have a number of officers who've gone through that. It is all three of these programs are in high demand, as you might imagine right now with the controversies and protests going on around the country. But we have already been searching and looking to get ourselves onto the waiting list to have those programs, those training programs brought back here to Boynton so that we can take our officers who haven't experienced it yet back through that. And if we can find some economies of scale of hosting that for other agencies, we're certainly open to doing that. But crisis intervention deals with de-escalation. Crisis intervention deals with people who are in the midst of some sort of crisis, whether it be a mental health crisis, a substance abuse crisis. This program helps officers develop the skills and the training necessary to navigate folks' challenges when they're in crisis and try to find a method of de-escalation and getting them the resources they need instead of a criminal path, working into a social type of program. So we're all about that. We've already started that. We've already done some of that, and we're going to continue to do it. The comments were made about the finding appropriate officers to join the police department, the recruitment perspective, and specifically with testing folks for psychological challenges that might not make them conducive to be police officers. That's actually a state requirement and mandate. When we hire officers, we have to put them through that type of psychological, or I should say when we hire or we process applicants, we have to put them through a psychological testing process to verify that they are suitable for police work and that they aren't suffering from some sort of, at least a detectable sort of mental illness. All of the officers that we hire and process through applications go through that testing. They have, as long as it's been a standard for the state of Florida, and we continue to do that now. right along that line of selection, a comment was made about a perception that we've lowered our hiring standard by requiring 60 college credits, and I have to push back on that one as well. When I got here 2 years ago, the standard was a high school diploma. And that is the standard for the state of Florida. The minimum hiring standard for a police officer, that's set by FDLE, is to have a GED or a high school diploma. We raised that standard last year in our process to be a 60 college credit requirement. So we aren't lowering it, we're raising the standard to make sure we hire just the best officers to serve this community. And then the last comment that I heard just recently was about requiring and mandating officers live in the city of Boynton Beach. And while that is a old school type of concept, and it still is used in some communities further north, it is not a widely popular concept or program in South Florida. Some of it relates to property values that may be high in some communities and put an undue burden on officers or their families to try to find a place that has a higher standard of living just because you're an officer in that community. Some of it has to do with officers who have family members and children, and they're looking to find their preferred school district or their preferred type of academic environment for their children. So the thought there is that, you know, officers are people too. They're officers during the time that they're at work, but they're human beings like everyone else who are looking out for their partners and their spouses and the best interests of their children as they raise them, and they have to navigate that and negotiate that with their other half, which have at least 50% of the decision-making process in household. So those are a couple of reasons why that mandate to live in the city isn't more widely, I think, accepted. And I think around at least the South Florida area, because of we have some high cost of living areas here. But also, I think that it would probably serve as a detriment in getting officers if that type of a mandate was to be put in place. But certainly it's worthy of discussion, and I'm glad I could put a couple highlights and feedback into all of these topics. I think those are the ones I had notes of. If I missed something, feel free to let me know.
Mayor, this is Jim Sherrill. Could I just add one comment with respect to the last subject matter that the chief talked about, which is mandatory residence requirement for law enforcement officers? That would be a mandatory subject of bargaining. So the next opportunity to bargain that issue and to have that as a requirement would be when the current contract expires in September of 2022.
All right, thank you, Jim. I think our next speaker will be Andrew Mack.
Mayor?
Yes. Yes, Veronica.
I just wanted to also chime in on that. And this is something I've spoken personally with some officers on the force about this and asked their opinion for or against this particular topic in terms of living in the community that they police. And one of the main issues that I've also heard from our police officers themselves is just that sometimes it's an issue of just privacy. You know, when you're a police officer, you're arresting certain individuals, you're seeing them in states that they may not be so proud of if it's a regular day. And so when, you know, you happen to live in the same area and you run across that same person at a different time when maybe their life is in a better place, it's a little awkward for both parties involved, especially if you had to, you know, perhaps, you know, arrest the person or put them into some type of you know, I forget the name of the process, but when you kind of put them in a mental hold or something like that. But there's lots of other issues for that reason, which I think also kind of goes against that thought process. But, you know, I think another way to maybe look at it is rather than trying to mandate it, maybe we should look at or explore, you know, beneficial opportunities and create some public-private partnerships, you know, with local apartment complexes or housing complexes to see if some of our officers do choose to live within the city limits, if there are some benefits to them for doing that. So, there is a plus and a minus to it, and it's definitely worth exploring. But, just to kind of mention what I've heard from officers themselves, there are some problems with living in the community that you also police. It becomes problematic at times. One more thing I wanted to mention was in regards to our neighborhood officer program. I'm not sure if Chief mentioned it, but in regards to Tori's comment, they will be returning into the heart of Boynton area very soon, where I believe they will be housed within the Ocean Breeze project that's being developed right now. Was that mentioned, or did I miss it?
It hasn't been mentioned.
Okay, so just again to emphasize that the officer program will be there and still is there, and the intention of that program is to have them be right in the heart of the community that they serve the most. So wanted to make sure we emphasize on that. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission before we move on? All right, Andrew?
Yes, sir. So I did as well, took notes the best I could. I don't believe the budget book is posted online yet, but there is in the budget book a list of the projects by location. In the final adopted budget, I do believe Tony intends to have a detailed list of projects that are by location as well. Projects at Barrier Free Park, that project was done in phases. So I think the original playground apparatus there, we are having problems where there's some actually peeling up of the poured in place. So that's what that is actually. The bioswale again was a part of the original project. It's time to replace that as well. There are some ADA enhancements that we're going to be doing to that park. Little League, the fence repairs. Obviously, the programming of that park's not something under my bailiwick, but as far as the fencing itself, it's definitely in need of repair. The golf course, those are some rollover projects that we didn't complete this year. There are family golf course replacement, the security system at their golf course in the parking lot and around the buildings, and then the repaving of the parking. I know that there's talk about in the future the golf course will be an enterprise under the capital plan, so they'll be funding their own capital improvements. I think this is the last round of that this year. The trees in Town Square, I'd have to get with you, Susan. I know that Matt's planted those. We actually did relocate some trees in front of the high school. I'll have to get with you that way. Multifamily recycling, mandatory, love it. Let's do it. I right now, voluntary, everything in recycling is voluntary. So I would love to have mandatory, but I don't think that's a feasible thing in the county. We do get a lot of participation in multifamily. It may not be seen, but we have a lot of participation in the rollout cars, those big 95-gallon blue and yellow ones that you see. And I actually mentioned that the new rear load truck that we're buying is a split truck. That's actually, we're buying that to help streamline that process. Mentioned cameras at Betty Thomas Park. We don't have anything for next fiscal year, but I'm working on an amendment this year to add some type of cameras back to Betty Thomas. I know that there was a short-term solution that the police department deployed some mobile cameras to the park. So that's something that we are working towards. I believe that's all those comments. There was some comments about drainage at Rolling Green. I did not catch that gentleman's address. Mentioned some drainage on Seacrest and Gateway. Seacrest is a county road, so we don't repair that road. That is something that we've been trying to address with the county, is the drainage right there at Gateway. We definitely know that there's a problem. The utilities department deploys pumps there all the time to when we get a big rain. Rolling Green, I know that the utilities department is in charge of implementing drainage projects in the city through the stormwater department. They are doing some master planning. I know that they're doing some master planning in the heart of Boynton area. I'm not sure that it goes up as far as Rolling Green. It may go in the future. I know that there is one drainage problem near the Rolling Green Public Works site that we will work out when we do the potentially do a facility there. So that is on the horizon. Let's see. I think I caught everything else. If I didn't, I'm open to, you can let me know.
All right. And I did want to have a presentation from our marketing department regarding city events.
We don't have an actual presentation, Mayor, but I do have the details of the budget in front of me if you have any specific questions on what events we have funded.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, I had that in front of me. Hang on 1 second. I know we have for next year, I think there's 4 main events funded. We fund for our 4th of July. Hold on. Let me just I got it right here. Thank you. I did.
That's
Bear with me. Hold on. I'm just trying to find the right page.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here it is. Thank you. So we do 4th of July. We have 90,000 budgeted for that. We have 25,000 funded for the holiday parade, 25,000 funded for MLK. And you and I talked, and I think we could probably do something with the Juneteenth and with that funding. I think, and we also have 50,000 this year for the tree lighting, because we're not certain the CRA is going to be doing the tree lighting because of the paying for the event or not. And so I need to like that. So that is in there. So those are the 4 events that we fund. And then in the city commission budget, we have 5,000 for civic educational events. So small things that come up, but if not, I could also tap into some of that to do something for Juneteenth, which I mentioned to the mayor when we had one-on-one. So I think we can pull something together on that without any trouble, without the need of it.
And also, I'd like to, we have a lot of churches in the city of Boynton Beach, and so regarding our Christmas tree event, I think we need to reach out to our our religious organizations to see if they'd help fund, because we as the city commission know the churches don't pay property tax, and I'd like to give them recognitions for the spiritual soul of the city, and have a nice big event for Christmas.
You're cutting up there a little bit.
Vice Mayor, so your hand raised.
Yes, Mayor, 2 things. Could you unmute Eleanor? And second, you were choppy in the last 30 seconds, so I don't think we heard anything you said in the last 30 seconds or so. Is it me or?
So what I was trying to say was that regarding our, I don't know, I'm using the city's computer and it's a little laggy right now. So what I was saying regarding our Christmas tree event that we have $50,000 budgeted for, my hope is that we can reach out to our religious organizations here in the city to help sponsor that event, get their name out there, get the congregation, because now we do have the space with our amphitheater where thousands of people can join. Today I was at the David Scott's tourism meeting, and I think this is an event that the city can have to help increase tourism.
Mayor?
Yes, Eleanor.
On the events that are in the special event budget, the 3 major events that we've been hosting in the past years have all been, as Lori said, the fireworks has been a $90,000 event, but note that that includes the fireworks of 40 plus the barge of 25. So with that said, the remaining is about 25,000 that we use for the event site itself, which is the same amount that we have budgeted for the parade and MLK. But in addition, as Lori indicated, we put some monies into our special event account this year of $50,000 to hope to fund the board dinner plus any other events such as Lori and you were discussing that we may want to have within a small community event, which I'm hopeful that we can do some more smaller community events throughout the city to expand those events. And the holiday tree, of course. And I totally agree with you, and I probably should call it a holiday tree, but I'm totally with you on getting the churches and religious institutions involved in that, and hopefully getting it decorated through them, and maybe some choir and choral groups.
All right, perfect.
If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to try to assist with those.
Thank you. So
Mayor?
if there's no, yes. Ms.
My only comment is just that in future years, I would hope that perhaps we can, in honor of Juneteenth, perhaps just do a resolution as well, in addition to maybe planning an event. That's just my suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the aspect of making it a paid holiday for the city employees is another conversation as well. All right. Is there anything else from the City Commission before we move on to the adoption of the proposed millage rate resolution?
Mayor, can you talk about hearing dates first so we get the resos right? We initially had proposed to September 10 as our first budget public hearing and preliminary fire rate resolution adoption hearing. However, I think you can do it on the 8th if you'd like to eliminate one additional meeting for you. Do it in concert, or prior to, I should say, the CRA meeting on the 8th. And that does still meet our fire assessment schedule. We've confirmed today, so if you would like to do that, we would amend the resolution with that date. And the kitty cat.
Yeah. So for the City Commission, I'm happy to have a pre-meeting of the city first, then the CRA shortly thereafter to approve the millage. You know, we start the meetings at 5:30 now, so I don't think it should be an issue.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Sorry.
So Christina's in favor. Do we have another of the City Commission?
Yes, I'm in favor of it.
All right, thank you, Woodrow. All right. And so is there any other questions you have, Lori, before Jim reads the resolution?
So our resos have, and then September 22nd will have to be the second hearing. I can't change that date, so you're good there.
Yep. I don't think there's any issue.
Should I go ahead, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Resolution R20066, a resolution of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, adopting a proposed municipal millage rate for general operating budget purposes for fiscal year 2020 to 2021, stating a rollback rate and setting forth the date, time, and place of the first public hearing, providing for an effective date. The stated proposed millage rate is 7.9000, and the stated rollback rate is 7.4911. Section 3 of the resolution would be modified from the one that's in your agenda package to indicate that the hearing would take place on September the 8th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. in Commission Chambers. I'll make one other suggestion, is that you include, in addition to the meeting taking place in chambers, that, and if legally permitted, by CMT, which is Communication Media Technology.
All right. So may I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion from the commission? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Resolution R20067, a resolution of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, relating to the provision of fire rescue services, facilities, and programs in the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, describing the method of assessing fire rescue assessed costs against assessed property located within the City of Boynton Beach, directing the preparation of an assessment roll, authorizing a public hearing, and directing the provision of notice thereof, and providing an effective date. And as we just did with the millage, there would be an amendment to section 11 of this resolution indicating that the meeting would be on September the 8th, 2020, 5:30 p.m. in commission chambers and if legally permitted by CMT.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the city commission? Hearing none. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes unanimously. That is it for our budget workshop. I'd like to thank everyone who was participating, both staff and the public. And Lori, we look forward to the big budget book once it's available with all the line items.
And to Susan's note earlier, I asked Tony if the document was online right now, and we're still getting it through ADA compliant. So that it's a huge document, so it takes some time. But we can individually, I can email it to her tomorrow. Tony will email it to her, and I have her email. So if Susan's there and she hears that, we'll get her in. If Ramona or anybody else at the meeting there would like us to do that, I can do that specifically. But it'll be how long, Tony, for the ADA document? Probably. It'll probably be another week to 10 days before the ADA compliant document will be on the site.
All right. Thank you.
I thank you. This is, I think this is a record. Not that we're trying to beat records, but the fact that we adopted our budget in one hearing, I want to say thank you very much. We had good questions, and hopefully we got you good answers.
All right.
Thank you to the great staff.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes. Christina.
I just want to make one comment in closing, and that is to Lori and the rest of the staff. You know, this has been a very shaky year and a lot of other things, and for you to be able to get the budget through without having to go into any reserves or doing anything that could potentially compromise the city. In addition to that, allowing for our police department to be able to better serve the public. I commend you and I commend staff for your great work. I have spoken to you on multiple occasions on my concerns for what next year's budget will look like, being that, you know, COVID will have, you know, probably had some effects, but I'm confident that, you know, we have a great team of people who will make sure that we continue to serve the residents of Boynton Beach well and help us as we go into that new phase and that transition. So again, thank you everyone, and thank you, Mayor, for running the meeting very effectively today.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no more further comments, may I have that motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Meeting is adjourned.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right, everybody.
I'll do my little exit script here. As a reminder, a recorded version of this session will be posted to the City of Boynton Beach's YouTube channel. Links to that channel are available on the City of Boynton Beach's website at www.boynton-beach.org. This concludes today's meeting. On behalf of Mayor Grant and all of our elected officials, the city manager and city staff, thank you for attending and have a great night.
All right, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.